Chapter 2451. It had been 4 years since Yi Ji had met Yuan Xian. When Yi Ji was still Qin Yiru's daughter, she was dragged into the toilet and beaten up by Lin Mengyu and the others. She had no desire to live and died from anger before reincarnating into this body. It had been at least 4 years. When Yi Ji reincarnated into this body, she already knew Yuan Xian. Since then, Yi Ji would tell Yuan Xian everything that was bothering her, and Yuan Xian never cared about it. Yuan Xian was an immortal cultivator and not an earthling. That was true. Yi Ji knew that too. Yi Ji also knew that Yuan Xian came to Earth for the Sorcerer God and the Lord of Gods. Yuan Xian's identity was at the pinnacle of the immortal cultivator's world. As for his true identity, Yuan Xian had never told her. She and he were like clouds floating in the sky and mud being trampled on by others. He was revered by tens of thousands of people while she was just a puppet. It was an incomplete puppet that had been created by someone else. Her birth was a mistake. In the past 4 years, Yuan Xian had never saved her when she was bullied. At most, he would ask after she was beaten up, "Are you okay?" Hence, Yi Ji never expected Yuan Xian to save her. Yi Ji was prepared to be beaten up by Sister Lu. She was so scared that she didn't dare to watch Sister Lu beat her up. But when she opened her eyes and saw Yuan Xian's face instead of Sister Lu's beating, Yi Ji was stunned. After Sister Lu was forcefully dragged to the side by Yuan Xing, she was knocked unconscious on the spot. Yi Ji stood up and looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. She only reacted after a while and said to Yuan Xian, Thank you. Sharia 5-star Hotel. Inside the private room. Milland and the other big investors had yet to leave the room. I wonder how Brother Galvin is doing now. Hee. Isn't that tender girl fun? I'm going to keep one someday. An investor said in a lewd voice. If you need one, I'll get one for you immediately. Milland laughed and said boldly. Okay, thank you, Brother Milland. The investor didn't hold back and said immediately. In their words, the girl wasn't human. That was just a tool used for trading. But before the investor could finish his words, a few sword lights flashed. Other than Mylander, the other investors beside him, including the one who had spoken with a lewd voice earlier, all fell to the ground. Milland's face changed when he saw this. He stood up decisively. A group of people rushed in from the door. They were very skilled and coordinated with the leader, a woman who looked like she was in her teens, to subdue Milland. Not long after, a beautiful girl walked in from outside the room. Following behind the girl were the members of the 3 special teams. The ones who led the charge were Tanuki and a team of assassins whom Yun Jian had sent here early in the morning. Yun Jian and the members of the 3 special teams came in later. After subduing Milland, Yun Jian crossed her arms and walked over. She looked at Milland and curled her lips. Mr. Milland, how have you been? What do you mean? Mr. Milland's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. You are the mastermind of drug trafficking in the entertainment industry. Lu Yu looked at Milland and said fiercely. Milland's face suddenly changed when he saw that his conspiracy was seen through. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian and said, so you saw through it, haha. But it doesn't matter. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2452. Page 1/1. Milland had been subdued by the raccoon and was tied to a stool beside the dining table in the private room. The investors who had spoken to Milland earlier were all lying on the floor. No one knew if they were dead or alive. Although Milland was tied to a stool, he looked at Yun Jian fearlessly as if he had caught Yun Jian's weakness. Obviously, Milland thought that Ce was Yun Jian's sugar baby and that Yun Jian had secretly given birth to the 2 children. Since Milland dared to say that, it meant that Milland must have sent his men to capture Ce and the 2 children. Moreover, judging by Milland's aggressive manner, he was confident that Ce and the 2 children would be captured by his men. One had to know that if someone had a hold on one's weakness, that would be the most fatal weakness for an undercover spy. Milland smiled as if everything was under his control. You have children? After Milan finished speaking, Lu Yu was the first to react. He glared at Yun Jian and exclaimed. If it had been something else, Lu Yu would probably have pretended to be a gentlemanly young master and criticized Yun Jian in a very personal manner. However, Yun Jian already had children. And there were 2 of them. The news was so shocking that not only was Lu Yu stunned, but even the members of Tier X Squad, most powerful squad, and the 6 members of Team Monarch were dumbfounded. Wow! You have children. I was wondering where you've been for the past year. You must have gone to give birth to children. Chu Xiangnan was the first to react as he laughed at Yun Jian. Congratulations. Lu Shiyun nodded at Yun Jian calmly. Wow! It's a baby. Yun Jian, once this mission is over, you have to let me pinch your child's cheeks immediately. I want to know if a baby's skin is really as they say, that you can pinch water out of it. Chu Ning exclaimed at Yun Jian. Not bad. Jiang Weiwei winked at Yun Jian. Fang Xiaoran and Hong Fan from Team Monarch congratulated Yun Jian on the spot. Milan was speechless. If her teammates heard this, shouldn't they be scolding her on the spot for bringing her gigolo and child to Country M and interfering with this mission? What was going on? Milan was dumbfounded. Naturally, Team Monarch was aware of CE's identity. However, the members of the Tyrannosaurus Squad and the Most Awesome Squad did not know about this. Azura, how could you make such a low-level mistake? I don't care if you've given birth to a child or kept a man as a mistress. It's all thanks to you that we were able to catch the person we wanted so quickly. But you actually brought a burden here. You really? Do you know that what we're most afraid of is being caught red-handed? You'll kill your man and child. And I've tolerated you for a long time. You've just joined the cast and you've already shown off your abilities. You can't wait to let everyone know your capabilities and identity. And now, you're here to mess things up, aren't you? I'll definitely report this to Chief Lu and ask him to kick you out of the Advanced Special Forces Squad. A girl named Huang Miling from the Most Awesome Squad used to be very quiet. This time, she finally lost her cool and yelled at Yun Jian. Is she really a member of the Special Forces Squad? Is she treating this mission as a game? However, just as Huang Miling finished her words, Milan breathed a sigh of relief. Once again, he thought that he had caught Yun Jian red-handed. The door of the semi-mysterious room was kicked open by a slender leg. A handsome figure broke through the door. The owner of the figure was carrying a child in each hand. His sharp eyes scanned the room and said coldly, "A mere trashy director from Country M's entertainment industry dares to send someone to kill my child. From today onwards, all the upper-class people who have worked with you, Milan, will be included in Hun's must-kill list. Leave no one alive." Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2453. Page 1/1. The visitor was none other than CE. It had only been a short while, but Milan had already sent his men to capture CE and the children. Especially for the 2 children, Miran had no intention of letting them live. He had sent his men to knock them out first. They were only 5.5 months old. Babies were not fully developed yet. The drug was injected into the air in an attempt to knock out CE and the children. Of course, the children could not withstand it. At this moment, he had already fainted. They were nestled in CE's arms. The children were only 5.5 months old. Although CE had discovered the source of the drug just by inhaling a little, they were still children after all. They would still be affected. CE usually carried and grabbed the children, but CE would never allow anyone to lay a finger on them. Although the children were usually a hindrance to him and Xiao Jian's intimacy, their existence was proof of their love for each other. Even if this point was ignored, the 2 little fellows were still indispensable existences. How dare they lay a finger on his children? Ha, Brother E is here. I knew it. How can our Yun Jian be threatened when someone as capable as Brother E is? Chu Xiangnan chuckled when he saw CE and even picked his teeth in a leisurely manner right in front of Director Milan, who was dumbfounded, provoking him. After that, Chu Xiangnan went to Ce with a chuckle and patted Chu Ning. Both of them went to carry the children who were sound asleep in Ce's arms. Ce was no stranger to Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan. After the children were carried away by Chu Ning and Chu Xiangnan, Ce's cold gaze was fixed on Milland, who was in the private room. Yun Jian's gaze flickered when she saw the children being knocked out by Milland's men. In the next second, Yun Jian pulled out a pistol from her waist and twirled it around before aiming it at Milland's thigh. Without hesitation, she fired a shot at Milland's thigh. "This shot is for you. You're about to go to hell for touching my children and crossing my bottom line." The shot hit Milland's meridian in his thigh and crippled Milland's thigh. Ah! Ah! After the shot landed, Milland, who had yet to react to Ce's statement that all the upper-class people who were working with him were listed on an Hun's must-kill list, screamed loudly. Because his limbs were tied up, Milland couldn't even hug his thigh and roll around in pain. In less than half a minute, Milland's forehead was drenched in sweat from the excruciating pain. "You're the killing gods, man. What does it mean to be listed on an Hun's must-kill list? Do you know someone from an Hun?" Huang Meiling, the woman who had accused Yun Jian just now, asked with a frown as she looked at Ce. Huang Meiling asked the question that was on everyone's mind. However, Ce ignored her. "Young master." A handsome man walked in from outside the door. He walked to Ce expressionlessly with a gunny sack in his hand. "The person who came was Immerse Sr. Open it," Ce said coldly. The gunny sack was opened, and a corpse was thrown out. Milland's face turned pale when he saw the corpse. He screamed in shock, "Gu Li! Gu Li! You actually killed Gu Li! Who are you? Who are you?" Gu Li was the boss of Country M's underground black market. At the same time, he was Milland's biggest business partner. The two of them existed side by side. The reason why Milland dared to openly abduct young girls into the entertainment industry and sell drugs was because he had Gu Li behind him. But how long had it been? This man actually sent someone to kill the boss of Country M's underground black market? Who was he? Wasn't he just a gigolo? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2454. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Gu Li was the boss of Country M's underground black market. Gu Li's identity and status was not as simple as being the boss of Country M's underground black market. Gu Li's brother-in-law was an international top firearms tycoon. The strength and influence of his subordinates was one of the best even in the world's underground black market. Milland had Gu Li as his backer, and that was his capital. That was why Milland dared to smuggle drugs and do all kinds of bad things in Country M's entertainment circle. Milland's biggest backer was Gu Li. Without Gu Li, he was nothing. As for Gu Li, his backer was his brother-in-law, who was even more powerful than Gu Li. The top firearms tycoon, Ken Mi. Ken Mi was Milland's and Gu Li's biggest backer. But Gu Li was protected by Ken Mi. In other words, it was almost impossible to kill Gu Li. Even on the international assassin list, there were not many people who had the confidence to kill Gu Li. Not to mention, in just a few hours, they killed Gu Li's body and brought it here. "Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you?" Milland even forgot the pain of his thigh being shot. He frantically shouted at Ce. His eyes widened almost at the same time. "But if I'm not wrong, your mother, Mrs. Fanny, started out as an actress in the entertainment circle." Just when everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them, Yun Jian's voice suddenly sounded. The moment he heard Yun Jian's voice, Milland was like a deflated balloon. His whole body was paralyzed in an instant. Gu Li was dead, and his backer was completely gone. Even if he was not caught by the police, he no longer had the motivation to continue living. About your mother, Mrs. Fanny's background, although it was completely blocked in the international circle 20 years ago, outsiders could no longer find out anything about your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. But unfortunately, I know your mother, Mrs. Fanny's past. Mrs. Fanny used to be a girl with dreams. She also entered the entertainment circle and relied on her own ability to become an international movie queen. But unfortunately, she was led astray by an investor who was also a drug dealer in the entertainment circle like you. After that, she took drugs, was forced to prostitute, and finally, she was caught by an assassin organization. Mrs. Fanny was forced to become an assassin. But unlike other assassins, Mrs. Fanny had the potential to become an assassin. After she became an assassin, she tried her best to control her drug addiction. Fanny, she met your father by accident. They fell in love and she gave birth to you. However, when she thought she was Miss Fanny, she was the investor who brought her into the entertainment circle. She was the investor who brought Fanny and was the investor. Fanny translation. Her Fanny was Fanny translation Fanny translation translation. The news that was released to the outside world was all fabricated by someone in the later stages. And the reason why you followed the example of the investor who harmed your mother and sold drugs in the entertainment circle was because you were unwilling to let your mother be harmed. That investor was eventually arrested by the police. You were unwilling to accept that all the bad things in the world had been suffered by your mother alone. Why should other girls in the entertainment circle be able to survive in the entertainment circle with their own abilities while your mother had to suffer all this? So, you followed that person's example and sold drugs in the entertainment circle just to let thousands of girls experience the pain your mother suffered back then. You were just satisfying your own selfish desires. You were unwilling to accept your tragic childhood and used your own way to take revenge on society. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2455. This was the truth. The reason why Milan sold drugs crazily in the entertainment industry, other than to earn money, was more to satisfy his own selfish desires. To be honest, with Milan's status, what did he not have? He had once directed a movie that broke the world's highest box office record. He did not lack money. He knew the boss of the underground black market, Guli, completely based on his own ability. He did not lack power either. Milan only wanted to satisfy his own selfish desires. He felt that his mother's life was miserable because she entered the entertainment industry. Why was his mother dead, and why was the investor who had once harmed her arrested? Milan refused to accept it. He wanted to let all the girls who had dreams and wanted to enter the entertainment industry know that their dreams could go to hell. Milan did not have a mother since he was young. His mentality was psychopathic. Yun Jian's words entered the ears of everyone present. After hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone was stunned. How did you know? How did you know? Milan had been completely paralyzed just now. Now that he heard Yun Jian's words, he suddenly raised his eyes again and stared at Yun Jian. The greatest pain in the depths of his memory was exposed. Milan did not hide it anymore. He laughed out loud. That's right. Why did my mother deserve to die? Why didn't I have a mother's love since I was young? Ha ha ha. I want them to experience what my mother went through. I want them to know that there is no such thing as a lucky thing in this world. What instant fame? What accidental fame? They all have to pay a price. Ha ha ha. As Milan laughed, a string of tears flowed down from the corner of his hideous eyes. Milan was pitiful, but a pitiful person must have a hateful side. No one could innocently trample on a teenager with dreams just to satisfy their own selfish desires. It was necessary to be vigilant. Drugs would ruin one's life. No matter how strong a person was, once they took a mouthful of drugs, they would be doomed eternally. No one could break this law, so everything had to be done with caution. You should never eat the food given to you by others, because there is no free lunch in this world. Most of the strangers who give you free lunch have ulterior motives. Milan was completely arrested by the police. Naturally, as an accomplice, Gorwin could not escape the punishment of the law. After Milan and Galvin were arrested, Yun Jian did not even wait to see Tier X Squad and Most Awesome Squad's expressions, nor did she have time to meet Officer Liu. She carried the children and returned to Country Z's Longmen City with CE. The little girl and the little fellow had been drugged for a period of time. They were fine, but Yunjian still looked after them herself, for fear that something would go wrong. It was not until 3 days later that the little girl and the little fellow returned to normal. As soon as the two little guys returned to normal, the little girl kicked Ce in the face. In spite of it, Ce's eyes were filled with love. On this day, Qin Yiru brought the little girl and the little fellow out. There were only Ce and Yunjian in the house. Yunjian stood by the window. Just as she watched Qin Yiru bring the two little fellows out, she pulled the curtains down. Ce, on the other hand, was flipping through a weapon book in his hand. Just as Ce was reading the book in his hand peacefully, he suddenly felt a figure pouncing on him and pressing him down on the bed. Yunjian sat on Ce's lap and tugged at his belt without saying a word. If you want to talk about Campus Rebirth, the strongest female secret agent, with more like-minded people, please follow us on WeChat. Chat about life, find a confidant. Chapter 2456. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. It was dark in the room. Although it was daytime, Yunjian had drawn the curtains so the sunlight outside could not penetrate the room. Ce, who was pushed onto the bed by Yunjian, was stunned. In the next second, his Xiao Jian was already tugging on his belt. Ce was stunned. Since when was his Xiao Jian so open? Who knew that Yunjian would sit on Ce's lap and pull off the belt on Ce's pants? She held onto the belt and did not continue her naughty act, standing up with a hand on Ce's abdomen. My mom said that we'll be holding our engagement party in 2 days. I'll take this belt first to use it as a reference for my waist. Yunjian took the belt from Ce's waist and gestured to Ce before she stood up and headed for the door. He thought that he was thinking the wrong way. His Xiao Jian was not. Ce's handsome lips tugged, his every movement exuding a strong sense of possessiveness. Yunjian had already gotten Ce's belt and was heading out of the bedroom with it. Before she could open the door wide enough for her to walk out of the bedroom, the door was slammed shut with a bang by a large, bony palm that came from behind her. Ce stood behind Yunjian and held the eyesore of the door with his arm. He hugged Yunjian from behind and bent down slightly to press his head to the side of Yunjian's ear with a devilish grin. Xiao Jian, don't you know what it means to pull a man's belt? His thin lips touched her earlobe softly, his soft and tingling voice ringing in her ear. The ticklish sensation made Yunjian shiver. Ce pressed his lips to Yunjian's ear, professing his love to Yunjian unabashedly. He thought that his Xiao Jian would be blushing shyly. Unexpectedly, Yunjian, who was pinned against the door by Ce, suddenly turned around, holding the belt that she had just pulled out from Ce's pants with one hand while her other hand grabbed onto Ce's collar. At the same time, she pressed herself against Ce. The way Yunjian twisted her body slightly when she turned around and pressed herself against Ce was extremely seductive. The flexibility of her body was even sexier than the pretty girls who danced in nightclubs. Today, I'm on top. These 5 words that were different from the past but were domineering sounded abruptly. A sharp glint flickered in Ce's eyes. Since the first time they did it, he had always taken the initiative while she was shy. Ce was used to her shyness in front of him. Who would have thought that his Xiao Jian would say something so seductive today? Just as he said that, the belt in Yunjian's hands slipped to the floor. She did not care where the belt landed as she pressed her hands against Ce's chest and retreated to the bed not far away, pushing Ce to the edge of the bed again. She sat on Ce's lap like she did just now. Xiao Jian. Ce called out in a daze. This was the woman he loved the most. Now, she was sitting on his lap and taking the initiative. Yunjian bent down to cover Ce's mouth and whispered softly in his ear. Shh. It was a soft word, but it left one's imagination running wild. Before Ce came back to his senses, she had already taken off her loose jacket. What he did not expect was that under the loose jacket was a sexy nurse's uniform that only vaguely covered her private parts. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2457. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Yunjian said, "Take you home," page 1/1. Indeed, Qin Yiru wanted to use Siyi's belt because Ce and Yunjian's engagement party was in a few days' time. The two of them had already given birth to a child, and they had already done all the things they should and shouldn't have done. Even though Yunjian had not reached the legal age of marriage in country Z, she still wanted to get engaged first. This was also how people in rural areas got married early. However, the purpose of using Siyi's belt was not just to complete the task that Qin Yiru had instructed her to do. Yunjian had turned to leave the bedroom earlier because she knew that Ce would stop her. Ce had never expected that Yunjian would be wearing such a sexy nurse's uniform on top of her loose jacket. The 19-year-old Yunjian was already the mother of two 5.5-month-old children. However, just by looking at her figure, one would not be able to tell that Yunjian had already given birth. Her perfect abdomen, which did not have any excess fat, and her ridiculously large breasts, as well as her long and slender legs, which were exposed and only the important parts were covered by a short shirt. At this moment, Yunjian had already given birth to two children. Even if she said that she was still an 18-year-old virgin, no one would doubt her. Her seductive figure caused Ce's lower body to tighten. Blood almost gushed out of Ce's nose. It was fortunate that Ce's willpower was strong. From the beginning to the end, Yunjian was the one on top. Even when Ce saw that she was tired and wanted to turn over, Yunjian pressed him down on the bed and refused to give up the top position. In the end, Ce really enjoyed it. Although Yunjian had always been the one who put in the effort, she had truly felt true love. Country M.L. City. Yunjian was worried about the two little guys and left in a hurry, so she didn't have time to take Yiji back. Yiji waited for Yunjian at her residence for 3 whole days. On the 4th day, she hugged her knees and sat at the bottom of the stairs, holding the hair clip that she thought Yuan Jin was going to give to Yunjian, and the bracelet that she had woven with grass to give to Yunjian. Burying her head in her knees, Yiji felt lonely. She had just returned from the set and heard that Yunjian had already, she left. A deep male voice rang out behind him. It was obvious that the owner of this voice was Yuan Xing ever since Yiji told Yuan Xing that she already had friends and that he didn't have to look for her as often as he wanted to. Yuan Xing came to find Yiji more and more frequently. She said she would take me away. Yiji hugged her knees, her voice getting softer and softer. Didn't she say that she would take her away from here? Was it because she was just a puppet that she didn't want her anymore? Yuan Xing didn't know what was wrong with him. He had heard Yiji say that Yunjian would come back and take her away countless times. There was an indescribable frustration in his heart. If Yunjian took Yiji away, he wouldn't look for Yiji for a long time. Because once he appeared, the sorcerer goddess and monarch god would definitely notice his existence. And now wasn't the time to meet the sorcerer goddess and monarch god. To put it bluntly, Yuan Xing was still hiding from Yunjian and Ce. Hence, Yuan Xing instinctively didn't want Yunjian to appear. No. She will definitely come. She definitely will. Yiji suddenly held the 2 items in her hands and stood up with determination. Squeak, the door opened. Sister Lu should be back soon. Yiji quickly squatted down. But just as Yiji thought that Sister Lu had returned, a familiar voice came from outside the door. Yiji, I'm here to take you home. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2458. Yunjian's voice rang from the door abruptly. Yiji sprang to her feet almost at the same time when she heard it. Bang! Because she was too excited, Yiji accidentally bumped into the very bottom of the small attic by the stairs. She cried out in pain. Ah! In her excitement, however, Yiji did not care that her head had hit the top of the short staircase. She stood up excitedly and ran out of her small bedroom. When she saw Yunjian's beautiful and delicate face, she almost jumped in excitement. Yuan Xing, look! She's here. She's really here to pick me up. Yiji was so excited that she turned and ran to the bottom of the stairs, wanting to convey her joy to Yuan Xing, who was sitting on her bed. But who would have thought that Yuan Xing had already disappeared without a trace? He's Gone. She thought. After bringing Yi back to Longmen City, she let her stay at Gu Yunjian's house. After she told Qin Yiru what Yi knew and everything she knew, Qin Yiru was shocked. After all, this was extremely complicated, and it was impossible to explain the ins and outs of the matter with ordinary logic. In the end, however, Qin Yiru understood. Yunjian was her child. She should have been since the beginning. Yi had been her child for 15 years. Both children were hers. There was no way Qin Yiru could not accept this fact. Now that Yunjian was married and had found the person she loved, she moved in with Ce. Yi, on the other hand, was still unmarried, so she continued to stay at Gu Yunjian's house as Qin Yiru's daughter. When Yi and Qin Yiru reunited, they hugged each other, crying and screaming while Yunjian stood at the side with her hands on her forehead. Those who did not know better would think that Yi and Qin Yiru were lovers who were meeting again after more than a decade. After that, Yunjian went to the military. She came back earlier the last time because of the two little ones. Other than Yunjian, the other three teams stayed in Country M for a few more days. Yunjian came back with Team Monarch, Tier X Squad, and Most Awesome Squad to fetch Yi this time. After bringing Yi home, Yunjian went to meet up with the three teams. A team of 7 and a group of 21 went to the military base. After the mission was completed, they still had to report the details to Chief Lu. But this time, the arrest of a serious criminal who harmed young girls in the entertainment industry was recorded as a great achievement by the higher-ups. Since they were capturing an international criminal this time, Yunjian and her team were representing Country Z. The real-time achievements of Country Z's special forces were also recorded globally. Yunjian and her team had returned to the military base. When Chief Lu sent Yunjian and her team to Country M's L City, he returned to Country Z first because he was afraid that Yunjian and her team's identity as spies would be exposed. When he saw Yunjian and her team, Chief Lu almost ignored the 7 members of Team Monarch and spoke to the members of Tier X and Most Awesome Team. Thank you for your hard work. To be able to complete the mission so quickly, it's going to break the global record. You guys are really talented. Talented. You guys completed such a difficult mission in just a few days. Even the strongest special forces in the world don't have such capabilities. You guys are indeed the special forces who returned from overseas. Amazing. His words were filled with disdain for Yunjian and her team from Team Monarch. However, as soon as Chief Lu said that, all the members of Tier X and Most Awesome Team lowered their heads. What's wrong? You guys broke such a great honor. Be more confident and raise your heads. Chief Lu said proudly. However, as soon as Chief Lu said that, Tian Shuaishuai took the lead and lowered his head to speak to Chief Lu. The mission was completed so quickly, all thanks to Team Monarch Slayer God. Team Monarch assisted from the side and we didn't get to interfere at all. Please remember the domain name of this book. M. Chapter 2459. When Tian Shuaishuai said that, all the members of the Tier X squad and the Most Awesome squad lowered their heads. Due to shame, none of them dared to utter a single word. As soon as the words left his mouth, Officer Lu felt as if someone had used a 1,000-pound hammer to smash his head off. He stood there dumbfounded. What did you say? The Tier X squad and the Most Awesome squad returned from overseas and graduated from the world's strongest Special Forces Academy. They did not even have a hand in this mission. The mission was completed. The mission was completed so quickly. This is all thanks to Team Monarch slashing God alone. Team Monarch's member assisted from the side. After Officer Lu heard Tian Shuaishuai's words, he seemed to have suffered a huge blow. He was so shocked that his face turned pale and even his lips and teeth were trembling violently. How was this possible? Slashing God. She was just an ordinary Special Forces member who graduated from a domestic military academy. Officer Lu, I'm sorry. This mission was not only completed by slashing God alone, I almost. Dong Lijie's lowered head looked straight into Officer Lu's eyes when she lifted it. In the next second, she stopped talking and looked at Yun Jian from the side in front of Officer Lu. Then, she bowed deeply to Yun Jian. I'm sorry. It's my fault in the past. I've been picking on you, thinking that the special forces trained in your country are weak. If it wasn't for you this time, I don't know what would have happened to me. I was too conceited, thinking that we graduated from the world's best special forces academy. I'll be humble in the future. Dong Lijia's apology was sincere. After Dong Lijia's apology, Zhu Ao also apologized to Yun Jian solemnly. Then, all the members of the most awesome squad apologized to Yun Jian. All of them did it in front of Officer Lu. It confused Officer Lu. Even so, Officer Lu was still unconvinced because he did not witness Yun Jian's strength with his own eyes. Forget it, I'll test Slashing God's strength in the next mission. She didn't pull any tricks, did she? Otherwise, how could such a strong team member like the most awesome team apologize to her in front of him? Disperse, disperse. Officer Lu waved his hand casually. The more he mocked Yun Jian and the other Team Monarch members in the past, the more embarrassed he was now. Therefore, he was still a little displeased and unconvinced. But he didn't say much. After returning from the army, Yun Jian went back to Qin Yiru's house. The new year of 2004 was almost here. Tonight was the night before the New Year's Eve. Qin Yiru made some dumplings for everyone to enjoy together. Tonight, Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's house was crowded with people. It was very lively. Gu Yunjian's former comrades also came to join in the fun. Looking at the people around him eating the dumplings, Adam rubbed his stomach. Over the past few days, he and Immerse had been forced by CE to come up with names. Until now, they had yet to come up with a decent name. CE wanted them to take it out today. If they couldn't, they wouldn't be allowed to eat. Adam looked at his son, Zhou Ran, who was not far away, holding a bowl of dumplings and eating enthusiastically. He was envious. At this moment, Yun Jian and CE walked out of the kitchen. The little girl already knew how to crawl. The speed at which they crawled was really fast. Just as Yun Jian, CE, and everyone else gathered in the big living room, the little girl suddenly crawled to Adam's son, Zhou Ran, while giggling. Because she crawled too fast, the little girl suddenly bumped into Zhou Ran. Her small body flew directly onto Zhou Ran's body. Her little mouth actually kissed Zhou Ran's lips, who was eating dumplings by himself. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2460. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At the same time, at the People's Hospital in Country M, Shermifan, who bullied Yiji last time and was stabbed in the back with a silver needle, did not die, but she was in great pain. She was now lying in the hospital. Shermifan was lying face down in the hospital's VIP ward. At this moment, Shermifan's manager hurriedly walked in from outside the VIP ward. How is it? Is the filming date delayed? Shermifan couldn't wait to ask. Shermifan paused. Before her manager could say anything, Shermifan gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "It's all because of Luo E that be *tch. If I lose the role of the female lead because of her, I'll make sure she can't survive in the industry." Luo E was the alias Yun Jian used to arrest the criminal Miland in Country M. Obviously, Shermifan didn't know that Miland had been arrested. But as soon as Shermifan finished her words, Shermifan's agent said to her in a trembling voice, "Mr. Miland has been arrested. The shooting of the movie has been cancelled." What? Mr. Miland has been arrested. Shermifan was still lying on the bed. When she heard her manager's words, Shermifan jumped up from the bed almost at the same time, ignoring the pain in her back. "No, not only that. The company has given us orders, saying that there's a big shot from the top who has personally come to ban you. No commercial endorsements are allowed to ask you to appear in front of them again." Shermifan's manager carefully glanced at Shermifan and then told her the fatal news he had just received. What? After Shermifan heard this, her vision went black. In the next second, her body suddenly stopped. Hearing this bad news, she actually fainted on the spot. The second before she lost consciousness, the words that Yun Jian said in public not long ago still lingered in Shermifan's ears, as if it was yesterday. "I'll spare your cheap life, your career as an actress is over." In stark contrast to these people who were in so much pain that they wished they were dead, Qin Yira's house was bustling. The little girl ran too fast and suddenly bumped into Zhou Ran. The two of them kissed in public for a few seconds. The adults around them didn't react in time. Yeah. 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 In the end, it was still the little fellow who rushed forward. As if he knew that he should protect his little sister, the little fellow crawled in front of the little girl and Zhou Ran. He pulled the little girl over and glared at Zhou Ran like a tiger staring at its prey. He then let out an angry cry. Zhou Ran was still holding the dumplings in his hand. He was already 4 years old. Zhou was quiet. He was originally eating the dumplings. He was eating the dumplings. He didn't expect the little girl to come to him. He didn't react when the little girl came. "Little boy. What a beautiful kiss. Young master, I, who asked all of you to be born earlier than me? Stand to the side." Adam was the first to clap and cheer. As he cheered, he shouted loudly. He first spoke to Ce, then looked at Shuang, Mo Sen, and Lin Wei. It was as if he was afraid that outsiders wouldn't know that the little girl had been kissed by his Zhou Ran. Just as he clapped his hands and shouted, Adam felt a sharp gaze that was enough to kill from the corner of his eye. Turning to the side, Ce's piercing gaze that looked like he wanted to kill him was exuding a murderous aura. Adam's body trembled for no reason. Ahem. Young master, I'm serious about naming. What bad things? I didn't do it. It's my little rascal's fault. It has nothing to do with me. Adam had just finished speaking, and the crowd didn't have time to react. They saw Zhou Ran licking his lips. He glanced at the dumplings in his bowl, and a trace of disgust appeared on his young but exquisite face. He was eating this bowl of dumplings with relish. Now, Zhou Ran looked at the dumplings with disgust, then put the bowl of dumplings on the ground. Using his height advantage, he walked in front of the little girl and pushed her head away. He bent down and grabbed the little girl's mouth. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2461. Page 1/1, F***CK. Good boy. I'm addicted to kissing. Just rush up and do it. Dad will support you. Seeing this scene, Adam almost instinctively shouted out loud. Cough cough. It wasn't until Mo Sen let out a crisp dry cough that Adam realized that his loss of self-control was likely to attract the young master's pursuit. He hurriedly shut his mouth again. At this moment, the adults around them were dumbfounded. These two little kids were kissing each other, and now they were actually kissing. Completely ignoring the opinions of the people around him, Zhou Ran pushed the little fellow's head away with one hand and leaned his head in front of the little girl. As if he was licking jelly, he kept polishing the little girl's lips and kissing them non-stop. After kissing for a long time, Zhou Ran finally let go. He licked his lips and said in satisfaction in front of everyone, "So sweet." Sweet? Zhou Ran had just let out a satisfied cry when his short stature was lifted up by someone. Ce grabbed the corner of Zhou Ran's shirt from the back as if he was grabbing a little chick and lifted him up. This sudden voice rang out from above. Even the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization couldn't handle the heavy murderous intent in his voice. However, when Zhou Ran heard Ce's murderous voice, he only raised his eyes and glanced up. Then, he looked straight ahead and calmly replied to Ce, "Very sweet." It was the same voice and Zhou Ran's words, as if he was not frightened by Ce's aura at all. Even the 4 leaders of the Enhan organization didn't have the ability to suppress Ce's aura. Ce narrowed his eyes. After the new year, throw this guy into the Enhan organization's assassin training camp. Ce's voice suddenly sounded. As he spoke, he lifted Zhou Ran, who he was holding in his hand. Adam glanced at Zhou Ran and cursed in his heart. Oh my God, you stupid brat. Even I can't save you now that you've hit the muzzle of a gun. Go and suffer. When Zhou Yiran heard Si Yi's words, he didn't say a word. It could be considered a tacit agreement. Yun Jian, who stood aside, squinted her eyes. Others might not know, but how could she not understand Si Yi's meaning? Si Yi's words sounded like he wanted to deal with Zhou Yiran on the surface, but in reality, he had taken a liking to Zhou Yiran's calm and awe-inspiring aura. Once such a person matured, he would definitely reach new heights. Just based on the fact that Zhou Yiran actually dared to lay his hands on the little girl twice in front of so many people, if he didn't make him pay for it for the rest of his life, how could he let it go? After the little New Year's Eve, there were still about 6 days left until New Year's Eve. Yun Jian had been staying in Longmen City for the past 2 days. As the new year was coming, Chen Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and the others had already returned to Longmen City. Yun Jian had not seen Chen Sini for a long time as well. Their friendship was still the same, though. Since Yun Jian came to Longmen City, she had met Chen Sini. Some friends were as friendly as before when they met again, even if they were separated and had not seen each other for years. Some friends, however, grew distant after not seeing each other for a while. That kind of friend was probably only made because he had no other choice. They were not lifelong friends. Chen Sini was in university now and had a boyfriend. It was said that her boyfriend was a rich second-generation heir. Chen Sini's family was not bad either and was ranked among the top in Longmen City. However, Chen Sini's boyfriend's family was said to be the richest in the neighboring Wei province. Compared to Chen Sini's family, it was like heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. After meeting Chen Sini this time, Chen Sini wanted Yun Jian to accompany her to her boyfriend's house to pay her New Year's greetings in advance. Yun Jian agreed. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2462. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chen Sini had been dating her current boyfriend for a year now. It was because both of them had gotten along well that Chen Sini planned to visit her boyfriend's house at the end of the year. When she heard that Yun Jian was in Longmen City as well, Chen Sini was afraid to go alone, so she wanted to drag Yun Jian along. Zhang Xiaofeng treated Chen Sini well, so well that it was beyond the circle of cousins. Yun Jian was aware of this. Chen Sini had probably noticed it herself back then, so she got herself a boyfriend not long after she entered university, thinking of cutting off Zhang Xiaofeng's feelings for her completely. In the years that Yun Jian was involved in, Chen Sini, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Ling Yichen had officially joined new crews and helped out as the company's higher-ups. The three of them were no longer ordinary university students. Of course, all of this was kept a secret to the public. Jian, I'm a little scared. Do you think his mom won't like me? Chen Sini asked, a little afraid. You must have confidence in yourself. Yun Jian glanced at Chen Sini. Both of them were currently on a plane heading to Wei province. The richest man in a province, one could only imagine how wealthy Chen Sini's boyfriend was. Wei province's economic standard was rather high as well, comparable to Zhe province. To be able to become the richest man in Wei province, it went without saying that Chen Sini's boyfriend's family was among the top in the country's wealthiest list. According to Chen Sini, she had been dating her boyfriend for a year and she had accidentally lost her virginity to him once when she was drunk. When both of them woke up the next day, her boyfriend treated her as well as he should, even going down on his knees to propose to Chen Sini on the spot, saying that he would marry her after she graduated. Chen Sini was touched. It was almost the end of the year. Chen Sini planned to go to her boyfriend's house before the new year to give her New Year's greetings. It's here. Chen Sini held a small piece of paper in her hand and led Yun Jian to the gate of a villa that was even more luxurious than those shown on TV. Chen Sini's boyfriend seemed to be holding a party. Rich people love to play these games. Therefore, the guards didn't stop anyone. Yun Jian and Chen Sini walked into the villa together. Along the way, she heard from Chen Sini that her boyfriend's name was Bo Wenxiu. Bo Wenxiu was 1.8 meters tall. He was the standard tall, rich, and handsome man. He was also very gentle and considerate. He treated Chen Sini very well. Although Bo Wenxiu's family was extremely wealthy, Bo Wenxiu would never flaunt his family's wealth. The most important thing was that he treated Chen Sini well. Chen Sini used her pocket money to buy some precious tonics that were more expensive to her, planning to give them to Bo Wenxiu's mother. Jian, I am a little scared. I don't dare to go in. Chen Sini panicked again, standing at the villa's gate. What if his mother doesn't like me? Chen Sini asked. I'm here. It'll be fine. Jian placed her hand on Chen Sini's back and assured her softly. If Chen Sini was alone, she would not have dared to come here. Xiao Jian, it's so good to have you, Chen Sini said softly. Finally, she gathered her courage and opened the villa's gate. As soon as she opened the door, Chen Sini took a few glances inside. She was originally very excited to look inside. However, Jian clearly saw that Chen Sini's exhilaration was replaced by a handsome man who was 1.8 meters tall, not far away, hugging a girl in a princess gown. Chen Sini's rosy cheeks paled instantly. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2463. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations, page 1/1. Jian clearly saw that Chen Sini's face was turning pale bit by bit. The smile on Chen Sini's face, which was filled with excitement and anticipation, disappeared instantly. Even an idiot could see that when the handsome 1.8-meter tall man was hugging the girl in the princess dress, their posture was no different from that of a couple. It was obvious that there was something going on. And the 1.8-meter tall, extremely handsome man in his 20s was exactly the same as the boyfriend Chen Sini had described on the way here. Jian's face also darkened at this moment. The handsome man unconsciously glanced over, and when he saw Chen Sini, he was suddenly stunned. The next second, the handsome man let go of the girl in the princess dress and ran over. Exian, Sini, why are you here? He hurriedly ran over to Chen Sini and asked anxiously. This person was Chen Sini's boyfriend, Bo Wenxiu. Seeing Chen Sini suddenly appear, Bo Wenxiu's face was full of panic. Just by looking at his appearance, this Bo Wenxiu was indeed tall and handsome, even more handsome than Zhang Xiaofeng. But just now, when he was hugging the girl in the princess dress, Wenxiu, who is she? When the girl in the princess dress saw Bo Wenxiu walk over, she also walked over and raised her head in an arrogant manner, looking at Jian and Chen Sini as she interrogated. Suya, go find your friend first, Bo Wenxiu said to the girl in the princess dress. Why should I go? Who is she? I'm your fiancé. When the girl in the princess dress heard Bo Wenxiu's words, she raised her head and looked at Jian and Chen Sini proudly like a swan. Listen to me, go. Bo Wenxiu shouted at the girl named Suya. You're not going? Fine. If you don't leave, I'll leave. Bo Wenxiu turned around and grabbed Chen Sini's hand. He looked flustered, as if he wanted to explain something. Chen Sini was stunned when she saw Bo Wenxiu hugging Suya. Even when he was dragged out of the villa by Bowen, he was like a walking corpse. Jian followed him out with a sullen face. Sini, it's not what you saw just now. Listen to my explanation. Bo Wenxiu wanted to speak urgently. Then what is it? Chen Sini reached out and pushed Bo Wenxiu's hand away from her wrist. Bo Wenxiu still wanted to speak. However, before Bo Wenxiu could speak, a mature, middle-aged woman's voice that carried the dignity of a matriarch rang out. You're my son's girlfriend in university? I advise you to leave him as soon as possible. He already has a fiancé. He's not someone an ordinary person from a fourth-tier city like you can get involved with. After he finished speaking, a graceful and elegant woman appeared in front of everyone. This woman wore an expensive fur coat and appeared in front of everyone just like that. The person who came was Bo Wenxiu's mother, Lu Fenfen. Lu Fenfen looked at Chen Sini with a serious expression. The disgust in her eyes did not diminish at all. After she finished speaking, she glanced at Jian and Chen Sini as if she was looking at a poor person. Then, she said to Chen Sini in front of everyone, 5 million. Leave my son. Otherwise, I'll bankrupt your father's company. Lu Fenfen had the ruthlessness of a wealthy person. After she finished speaking, Suya raised her head again and looked at Yun Jian and Chen Sini with even more vigor. However, just when everyone present thought that Chen Sini and Yun Jian would be forced to back down by Lu Fenfen, a voice that sounded even louder than Lu Fenfen's. A voice that was far more heroic than Lu Fenfen's rang out. That voice carried an unyielding aura, causing the hearts of everyone present to fiercely tremble. 100 million USD. Get out of my sight. Otherwise, your position as the richest person in Wei Province will change. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2464. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Lu Fenfen's words were even more imposing than Wei Province's Fu family's matriarchs. Lu Fenfen, who felt that 5 million was already the greatest favor to Chen Sini and Yun Jian, was stunned on the spot. It wasn't just Lu Fenfen. Even Bo Wenxiu and Suya, who were standing at the side, were stunned on the spot. 100 million US dollars? Do you know how much 100 million US dollars is when converted to RMB? Lu Fenfen gently stroked her temple with her fingers that were dyed red with nail polish. Her face with deep red lipstick and heavy makeup was filled with extreme disbelief. Lu Fenfen's looks weren't bad. She was 1.67 meters tall, 2 centimeters taller than Yun Jian. She was wearing a rich madam's qipao, which made her look enchanting and charming. However, Lu Fenfen's aura couldn't compare to Yun Jian's. Although she was 2 centimeters taller than Yun Jian, Lu Fenfen was like a dwarf in front of Yun Jian. Lu Fenfen couldn't even straighten her back under the pressure of her aura. Lu Fenfen was looking at Yun Jian with contempt. Without waiting for Yun Jian's reply, Lu Fenfen spoke again. 100 million US dollars is equivalent to 600 million RMB. Since you're standing with this woman, you must be a university student. A university student with such a bad temper. Students these days don't learn from the good and only learn from the bad. You shamelessly came knocking on my door after becoming a mistress. The woman Lu Fenfen was referring to was naturally Chen Sini. She was originally talking to Yun Jian, but as she spoke, the topic shifted to Chen Sini. With this shift, she directly compared Chen Sini to a mistress. Mom. If you say one more bad word about Sini, I'll cut ties with you. Bo Wenxiu, who was standing at the side, saw that the matter was getting worse and worse. He panicked and immediately shouted at Lu Fenfen. This shout scared Lu Fenfen so much that she immediately shut her mouth. She only had one son, Wenxiu, and he was going to inherit the Fu family's company in the future. What are you doing? Just as Lu Fenfen closed her mouth, a dignified male voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this, everyone automatically treated Yun Jian's words as a farce and turned to look at the source of the dignified male voice. Instead, they saw a handsome middle-aged man who was close to 1.8 meters tall, dressed in a suit and leather shoes. He looked very similar to Bo Wenxiu. This person was none other than the richest man in Wei Province, Bo Xing. At the same time, he was also Bowen's father. After hearing the embellished story from Lu Fenfen, Bo Xing furrowed his brows and said casually, "Everyone who comes is a guest. Our Bo family is not a stingy family. Please come in and have a seat." Bo Xing was indeed the richest man in Wei Province. He was a well-known successful man in the country. Naturally, a housewife like Lu Fenfen couldn't compare to him. "No need, uncle and auntie. Sorry to disturb you. I'll leave now." Chen Sini was still clutching the nutritional supplements she bought. After she mustered her courage to say this, she pulled Yun Jian and left the Fu family. She wasn't the kind of person who would be shameless. Bo Xing, who stood in place, naturally didn't force her. In the business world, there were naturally polite words, but they were only polite words. This didn't mean that Bo Xing was on Chen Sini's side and supported Bo Wenxiu and Chen Sini being together. "Sini, you." Seeing Chen Sini and Yun Jian leave, Bo Bo Wenxiu panicked. He reached out and violently flung away Suya, who had been holding on to his hand, and wanted to chase after them impatiently. But before Bo Wenxiu could chase after them, Bo Xing grabbed him and roared furiously, "Go home and stay there." Bo Wenxiu didn't dare to not listen to his father. Hearing this, Bo Wenxiu huffed angrily. He could only go home first and find a chance to explain. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2465. Page 1/1. After leaving the Fu residence, Chinsinni's strong aura that she had forced herself to be collapsed in an instant. Once they stepped out of the Fu residence, Chinsinni hugged Yun Jian. After a while, Yun Jian felt Chinsinni lying on her shoulder, wet. Jian, what should I do? What should I do? Jian, let's not go back, okay? I don't want to go back to Longmen City, I don't want to go back, Chinsinni cried and screamed at the same time like a helpless child who had lost her way. Yun Jian knew that Chinsinni got a boyfriend to avoid Zhang Xiaofeng. She and Zhang Xiaofeng were cousins. Close relatives were not allowed to marry each other because the chances of children born of close relatives being born with disabilities and idiots were very high. In ancient times, there was a saying to keep the goodies within the family, but it was later proven by science that this was not feasible. Chinsinni wanted to let Zhang Xiaofeng see her happiness and completely cut off their relationship that had gone beyond family. But now, where do you want to go? Yun Jian did not know how to comfort people. She patted the member's back and asked. I want to drink. Jian, don't stop me. I feel terrible. Chinsinni's heart felt like it was being sliced by a knife. She hugged Yun Jian tightly as tears streamed down her face. Before this, Chinsinni had never been in a relationship, but she had already realized that something was wrong. She and Zhang Xiaofeng were out of the question. When Chinsinni was pushed down the stairs and her head cracked open, it was Yun Jian who saved her from the Grim Reaper. He had stayed by her side in the hospital and even after she was hospitalized, saying that he was the only one who would want her when her head was already like this. In spite of it, Chinsinni knew that if she did not cut off this relationship, it would be even worse when she tried to cut it off in the future. That was why she got a boyfriend. She did not expect it to turn out like this. Yun Jian did not say anything, only answering Chinsinni softly. When they arrived at the bar, Chinsinni cried and drank while Yun Jian accompanied her. The Bo residence. Inside Bo Wenxiu's room. Bo Wenxiu was holding his phone as he tried to connect the signal. Lu Fenfen had taken his phone away and he was grounded. The phone in his hand was an old phone that Bowen had repaired. It was an old phone from a few years ago. The phone's signal could not be connected. Bo Wenxiu even stood on the desk in his room and extended the hand holding the broken phone out of the window to connect to the signal. Beep. Finally, a message was sent. Bo Wenxiu heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this voice. On the screen of the phone, the last message sent was still clearly visible. Brother, I'm risking my life to help you this time. Sinny has come to Weizhou. I'm afraid that she'll take things too hard. Go and find her quickly. After drinking for an entire night in the bar, Chinsinni spat out a mouthful of blood the moment she left the hotel. Yun Jian sent Chinsinni to the People's Hospital near Wei Province overnight. After a night of checkups at the hospital, they found out that Chinsinni drank so much that her stomach was bleeding. After all, Chinsinni was someone who never drank. She had drunk 15 bottles of wine and refused to listen. Yun Jian did not know how to comfort her, so she could only let her be. Chinsinni only fell asleep in the hospital ward at 4 in the morning. Yun Jian, on the other hand, went to a nearby hotel to check in after confirming that Chinsinni was fine. The next morning, Chinsinni had just woken up. She used her hand to block the light when she suddenly saw a haggard figure sitting on a bench beside her, the one she did not want to see the most, Zhang Xiaofeng. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2466. Page 1/1. Zhang Xiaofeng had rushed over from Longmen City in the middle of the night. Zhang Xiaofeng knew nothing about Chen Sini inviting Yun Jian to Wei Province's Bowen Xiu's house for a Lunar New Year visit. After learning about Chen Sini's condition, Zhang Xiaofeng rushed the entire night without even closing his eyes. It had only been one night, but he looked so haggard that it was frightening. Chen Sini was still hooked up to an 4-drip when she first saw Zhang Xiaofeng. She probably reacted swiftly at the same time and straightened her back, instinctively wanting to remove the 4-drip and run out. How long are you going to make a fuss? Zhang Xiaofeng grabbed Chen Sini's wrist reflexively when he saw her running out. His handsome but haggard face was heart-wrenching. Chen Sini looked around but did not see Yun Jian. She wanted to fling Zhang Xiaofeng's hand away, but it was held tight. I'm not making a fuss. Chen Sini's tears flowed again after she said that. Isn't it good to be by my side? Didn't I say that other than me, who else would want a woman like you? Zhang Xiaofeng looked furious. Unlike the righteous Zhang Xiaofeng in his 3rd year of junior high, Zhang Xiaofeng was already a mature man in his 20s now that he was in university. There were obvious changes in his personality as well. He was more mature now. But we're siblings. We're cousins. We're close relatives. Chen Sini shouted with tears in her eyes. Before Chen Sini could finish her sentence, Zhang Xiaofeng kissed Chen Sini's lips eagerly, swallowing the last word she wanted to say. With Zhang Xiaofeng around, Yun Jian wasn't worried about Chen Sini. At this moment, Yun Jian arrived at the largest park in Wei Province's Pan City. Pan City was the area where Yun Jian was now, and Pan City was also the most prosperous place in Wei Province. The richest family in Wei Province, the Fu family, was in Pan City. Yun Jian didn't come to the largest garden in Pan City to play. With Chen Sini in such a state, Yun Jian was not in the mood to play. Of course, the biggest reason for coming here was because the address written on the envelope that Yuan Jin had asked Yeji to secretly give Yun Jian was this large garden in Wei Province's Pan City. Purple Cherry Garden. The Purple Cherry Garden was not only the largest garden in Pan City, it was also the largest garden in Wei Province. In fact, it was the 2nd largest garden in Country Z. The Purple Cherry Garden's surface area was as large as 10 ordinary schools combined. This was a rather large area. Here, one could find out the identity of the mysterious person, as well as the secrets of God continent and the thousands of continents over the years. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes as she walked in the Purple Cherry Garden. Yaya, as Wenxiu's fiancé, you have to come to our house often in the future. You should cultivate your relationship with Wenxiu. Just as Yun Jian was walking aimlessly in the Purple Cherry Garden for almost half an hour, a familiar voice suddenly came from the front. She saw a group of people walking in front of her. The one walking at the front was none other than Lu Fenfen, whom she had met yesterday. Lu Fenfen was holding on to Bo Wenxiu's fiancé, Suya, and behind them was a reluctant Bo Wenxiu. There were also a few young people around the same age as Bo Wenxiu and Suya. They were obviously the sons and daughters of wealthy families. Yun Jian didn't care at all, nor was she surprised. She bypassed the group and walked forward as if she didn't see them at all. When Lu Fenfen saw Yun Jian, however, her expression changed completely. Lu Fenfen's face darkened as she looked at Yun Jian and suddenly shouted, "What the hell? It's you. Why are you haunting us like a ghost? You even followed us here on purpose and followed us here. Shame on you. I said before, no matter what your friend does, my son won't be with her." Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi. Chapter 2467. Lu Fenfen was certain that Yun Jian had followed her to the Purple Cherry Garden on purpose. The way she stopped Yun Jian was no different from a shrew. Yun Jian only glanced at Lu Fenfen. She was here on official business and didn't want to be entangled with her. Yun Jian also wasn't in the mood to think about why Lu Fenfen and her friends were here. Stop right there. Stop right there. I have to make things clear this time. No matter how shameless your friend is, she can forget about having anything to do with my son. You better make things clear before you leave. Do you hear me? Lu Fenfen saw that Yun Jian was about to leave, so she put her hands on her waist. She was dressed like a rich lady, but her posture was like a shrew on the streets. She blocked Yunjian's way. "Auntie, who is this?" A man in his 20s standing next to Suya, who was dressed rather fashionably, asked Lu Fenfen when he saw this. "She's the friend of Wen Xiu's girlfriend that I just told you about. She's so shameless." Lu Fenfen glanced at Yunjian with disgust. Lu Fenfen had just told everyone how shameless Yunjian and Chen Sini were yesterday. Because they had never seen Yunjian and Chen Sini before, everyone automatically thought that Yunjian and Chen Sini were ugly women. Especially after hearing Lu Fenfen's exaggerated words, they hated Yunjian and Chen Sini even more. They just didn't expect that the friend of the woman in the market yesterday would be so beautiful. The fashionably dressed man in his 20s couldn't help but look at Yunjian again. She doesn't look like one. She's quite an obedient girl. This man in his 20s, who was dressed very fashionably, was Suya's brother, Suyu. Su-er was very handsome, and was the target of many girls' admiration. Suyu's family background was comparable to the Fu families. In terms of business, the Su family was even better than the Fu family. This was the reason why Lu Fenfen wanted her son to be with Suya. She's a well-behaved girl who won't cause trouble. A man of the same age standing beside Su-er said. Indeed, Yunjian looked like the kind of girl who would not cause trouble and was extremely well-behaved. Ling, this girl is not bad. According to the speed at which you change girlfriends, you should have a new one this week, right? Do you want to chase after him? Another man behind Su-er joked with the man standing next to her. At that time, everyone thought that Yunjian had no strength to fight back. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would be embarrassed to the extreme. The voice of the tour guide who brought a large group of people to the Purple Cherry Garden not far away reached everyone's ears through the loudspeaker. This is a big miracle of the Purple Cherry Garden. Why do you say so? Because long before human history was recorded, these people's pictures were carved on this huge rock. But the strange thing is that the pictures of these people were later identified by experts who said that the people carved on this rock all seemed to be practicing the same cultivation method, just like the immortal cultivation mentioned in the novels. But this conclusion was immediately refuted by the secular world. You said that there were people who existed long before human history was recorded. Could there really be immortal cultivators in this world? The tour guide's voice reached everyone's ears. Ha, pedantic. Seeing that Yunjian was listening attentively to the tour guide's voice, Lu Fenfen could not help but snort coldly. At that time, everyone thought that the tour guide's words were just a trick used by the tour guide to boast about the tourists. But just when everyone thought so and did not care at all, they suddenly saw a figure standing in front of the tour guide. Yunjian walked over in front of everyone and grabbed the tour guide's collar. Her eyes darkened slightly as she questioned the tour guide. Repeat what you said just now. Chapter 2468. Page 1/1. Yunjian's actions shocked everyone present. If a normal young girl were to stand in front of Bo Wenxiu, Su-er, and the man called Ling, most of them would be red in the face. Especially when this young girl was being discussed in public by a few male campus beaux who were not ugly and were highly sought after by many girls. Most young girls liked to present their most perfect side in front of a man. No matter how bad it was, they had to maintain their image. But whether it was Su-er, the man called Ling, Lu Fenfen, Suya, or Bo Wenxiu, none of them had ever seen a young girl like Yunjian. She was perfectly fine, but she actually walked up to the tour guide who was exaggerating the scenery to the tourists in front of everyone. She even grabbed the female tour guide's collar in front of everyone and interrogated her. Did she want to be in the limelight so much that she went crazy? She had a disagreement with Lu Fenfen, and she actually dragged an innocent tour guide into this matter? This tour guide was wearing a tour guide's uniform. Her hair was loose, and she had a loudspeaker at her waist. Her collar was grabbed by Yunjian, but the tour guide still had a stunned look on her face, not knowing what to do. What are you talking about? The tour guide stuttered. Yunjian did not say anything. She let go of the tour guide's collar and pointed at the pile of ancient rocks in front of her, where there was a picture that looked like it had been carved by someone. In front of her was a pile of rocks that dated back to who knew how many years ago. At the top of this pile of rocks, there was a picture that had been carved for a very long time. And on this picture, there was a person. This person's clothing was very similar to the people of the myriad continents. And below this person, there was a group of commoners who were kneeling in front of him. This person who was carved at the top was like a king who looked down on all living things. In his hand, he held a crystal ball, just like the immortal cultivators described in the books on earth. The person who carved this lifelike painting, as if it could walk out of this pile of rocks, must be a top-notch painter. At this moment, Yun Jian's eyes narrowed. This rock has been standing here since 5,000 years ago, when humans began to record history. Are you trying to say that you know the meaning of the picture engraved on this rock? Then why are you still a university student? Why don't you go to an archaeologist? Without waiting for the tour guide to speak to Yun Jian, Lu Fenfen once again snatched the right to speak, and spoke to Yun Jian in disdain. The recorded history of humans only 5,000 years. Even earlier, humans at that time were not smart enough to record important events in history in various ways. This pile of rocks had existed long before the recorded history of mankind, so it was naturally an unsolved mystery of the world. Lu Fenfen did not believe that Yun Jian knew this. If you're so good, can't you understand those words? You're just a child, and you're just like your friend. One likes to be a mistress, while the other likes to be in the limelight. Lu Fenfen saw that Yun Jian had noticed the words that did not belong to any dynasty beside the picture carved on the rock, and she could not help but speak again. Ling, this girl is a little interesting. The moment Lu Fenfen finished speaking, the man from before spoke to the man standing next to Su'er in a playful tone. Yes. The man called Ling narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Yun Jian. Lu Fenfen crossed her arms and looked at Yun Jian with disdain. Yun Jian did not care about everything around her at this moment. At this moment, she was staring straight at the line of words, and her brows were slightly furrowed. Just as Lu Fenfen, Su'er, Suya, the man called Ling, and everyone else present thought that Yun Jian had done that just to be in the limelight, Yun Jian looked at the line of words and used her clear female voice to suddenly translate the meaning of this line of words. I am the creator of the gods' continent, the first ruler of the gods' continent, Xingfeng. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2469. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. After Yun Jian read the first line, she shut her mouth. Her brows furrowed tightly. From this line of words, it could be seen that the person who was worshipped by tens of thousands of people, who looked down on all living things like a god, who was engraved on this pile of rocks was the creator of God's continent, the first ruler of God's continent, Xingfeng. The ruler of the God's continent could rule the God's continent endlessly until he wanted to abdicate or was killed. Only then would the new ruler of the God's continent be replaced. The God's continent was the same as the earth. Its history was not recorded from the beginning. In other words, according to historical records, there were only 3 rulers of the God's continent. The current CE's father, the Lord God, and the Lord God's father. The 3 of them had ruled the God's continent for more than 10 billion years. In other words, were there other rulers of the God's continent who ruled the God's continent 10 billion years ago? Who was the ruler of the God's continent? How did the God's continent come about? Who was its creator? All of these were unsolved mysteries. Now, Yun Jian found the answer. The creator of the world was the person who created the God's continent. As for the creator of the God's continent, he was the first ruler of the God's continent, Xingfeng, who stood at the peak of the world and was revered by tens of thousands of people. After translating the first line, Yun Jian stopped. The words engraved on this rock did not belong to any of the dynasties on earth. However, they were the words used by the God's continent and the God's continent. Therefore, Yun Jian could understand them. However, after roughly reading the words on this rock, although Yun Jian looked calm on the surface, her heart was in turmoil. On this rock was the life experience of the first ruler of the God's continent, Xingfeng, who had created the God's continent. The God's continent was a world that Xing Feng had personally created. Xing Feng had created the God's continent to satisfy his vanity. In the end, everything in the God's continent was arranged in an orderly manner. Xing Feng even had a child with the woman he loved. He left the God's continent to the child and went into seclusion with the woman he loved. However, before they went into seclusion, a dark force appeared on the God's continent. A mysterious man in a black robe brought his force into the God's continent and wanted to unify the God's continent. But who would have thought that he would be discovered by Xing Feng, and the two sides engaged in a direct battle. In the end, that mysterious black-robed person's spiritual energy was greatly damaged, and he was forced to flee. Moreover, Xing Feng said that this mysterious person had a mysterious aura. Even if he was defeated thousands or tens of thousands of times, he still had an undying body and could make a comeback. This was the most terrifying part. Xing Feng was afraid that the mysterious man would come back with his subordinates, so Xing Feng left behind 3 god artifacts. Those 3 god artifacts were created by Xing Feng using all of his spiritual power. As long as the 3 divine weapons were collected together, the mysterious man would be completely defeated. And 2 of these 3 divine artifacts were in Yunjian's hands. Sandalwood box and wooden fan. It turned out that the mysterious man had already appeared on the God's continent hundreds of millions of years ago. Yunjian narrowed her eyes fiercely. When the group of people next to her saw that Yunjian had actually translated the words on the carving, they were all stunned. When she came back to her senses, Lu Fenfen's expression changed drastically. What? What are you talking about? Are you addicted to pretending? You dare to say anything. Aren't you afraid of being exposed? Lu Fenfen looked embarrassed. But just as Lu Fenfen finished speaking, Yunjian suddenly turned sideways to look at her. She clenched her hand into an eagle's claw and grabbed Lu Fenfen's neck. Before anyone present could react, she raised her hand and suddenly grabbed Lu Fenfen's neck, lifting Lu Fenfen into the air. Then, under the horrified expressions of Bo Wenxiu, Su'er, Suya, the man named Ling, and the others present, Yunjian raised her head slightly. Under her bangs, a pair of eyes flashed with killing intent. Everyone present was in an uproar, and a cold voice suddenly sounded like a ghost. Old woman, do you want to taste the taste of death? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2470. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, Yunjian's words, coupled with Yunjian's current actions, stunned everyone present. It was as if they had seen something terrifying. How could a normal teenage girl have such amazing wrist strength? She could form her hand into an eagle's claw and strangle a person's neck, lifting the person up effortlessly. Yunjian's wrist strength was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Everyone present, including the tourists standing at the side and the female tour guide, all looked extremely shocked. Everyone's faces were shrouded in shock and fear. Yunjian's actions were too shocking. Mom! Bo Wenxiu was the first to react. He rushed forward and shouted. Just as Lu Fenfen was about to be strangled to death by Yunjian, he begged Yunjian for mercy. Let her go. I'll definitely control her mouth and stop her from spouting nonsense. When everyone came to their senses and wanted to save Lu Fenfen, Yunjian glanced at Bo Wenxiu. She laughed coldly and let go. The message you sent to Xiaofeng saved your mom's life. Yunjian glanced at Bo Wenxiu. Her red lips moved, but her face was still expressionless. She glanced at Bo Wenxiu, then turned and left. How did she know? I was the one who sent the message. Bo Wenxiu looked at Yunjian's retreating figure and stood rooted to the ground, dumbstruck. Wenxiu, what's going on? Su'er asked Bo Wenxiu after seeing Lu Fenfen take a long time to recover. He heaved a sigh of relief. I'm fine. Bo Wenxiu shook his head, suppressing the shock in his heart. There was only one kind of person who could so accurately guess that he was the one who sent the message. A hacker. Yunjian left the purple cherry garden. There was no more information she wanted here. Just now, Yun Jian had basically understood the origin of the mysterious person. The creator of the divine continent, Xing Feng, was not from the divine continent. He came from another world. It was a place that did not belong to Earth, nor did it belong to the thousands of continents. The people there were not strong. They did not even have the spiritual power of the gods' continent or the myriad continents. However, that place was like a paradise. There were no wars or disputes. Back then, Xing Feng had only come to the gods' continent to become stronger. He had discovered spiritual power and created the gods' continent. As for that mysterious person, according to Xing Feng's observation, he also came from a world that didn't belong to the gods' continent, the myriad continents, or Earth. The world where Xing Feng lived. It was no wonder that the mysterious man was not even as strong as Ce. Normally speaking, an immortal cultivator who had existed for hundreds of millions of years should be so powerful that no one could defeat him. Since the mysterious man came from there and had the evil idea of ruling the Earth and the gods' continent, it was not surprising. Of course, Yun Jian's focus was not on this, but she already knew where the third divine artifact, other than the sandalwood box and the wooden fan, was among the 3 divine artifacts that Xing Feng had left behind. In the hospital ward. Chen Sini did not agree with Zhang Xiaofeng, nor did she reject Zhang Xiaofeng's courtship. Zhang Xiaofeng was feeding her porridge, spoonful by spoonful. Chen Sini felt that she was very selfish. She could not be with Zhang Xiaofeng, but she did not want him to leave. She began to greedily enjoy Zhang Xiaofeng's kindness to her. But now, she was even less qualified to be with him. She thought that she had lost her virginity to Bo Wenxiu. Chen Sini's thoughts drifted so far away that when she reached for the porridge that Zhang Xiaofeng was feeding her, she accidentally put her nose close to his. Zhang Xiaofeng scraped the porridge off Chen Sini's nose and said gently and lovingly, "Little fool, what are you thinking about?" Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2471. Zhang Xiaofeng, I think we shouldn't do this. It's weird, Chen Sini blurted out again, unable to hold herself back. Just as Chen Sini said this, Zhang Xiaofeng suddenly covered her mouth. Have some porridge first. As she spoke, she diverted the topic from what Chen Sini wanted to say. Chen Sini gulped and said nothing in the end. Yun Jian went straight back to the hospital. After bidding farewell to Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, she took a cab back to Zhe Province's Longmen City. She made an appointment with Chen Sini to pick her up from the hospital in Weixing Province 3 days later. According to the doctor, Chen Sini would only be discharged in 3 days. Yun Jian had to tell Ce everything she knew before she could contact deity continents over God and Bailey Yen to investigate the matter. Yun Jian rushed back to Longmen City on the same day. After telling Ce about it, Ce sent a message to deity continents over God and Bailey Yen with a frown. Chen Sini's emotions were basically stable now. With Zhang Xiaofeng by her side, Yun Jian was not worried. Once they got home, the little girl and the children pounced on them. Adam and Immerse have come up with a lot of names for the children. Pick 2. We'll take the family photo tomorrow and register their names, Ce said to Yun Jian as she pulled the 2 children out of Yun Jian's arms. What she meant was that the children's names would ultimately be chosen by Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded with a sweet smile. Mama. Mama. Yeah. Mama. The 2 children were caught in Ce's arms as they reached out desperately for Yun Jian's embrace. It was exactly the same as the saying, I haven't seen you for a few days, and I miss you very much. When Ce saw that the little girl was about to cry because she couldn't get her mother's embrace, her heart ached for her. She hurriedly handed the little girl over to Yun Jian. Seeing this, the little guy desperately squeezed out 2 drops of tears. In the end, Ce grabbed him by the collar and threw him back into the crib in the room. Mama the little girl grabbed onto Yun Jian's clothes in satisfaction and rubbed her face against Yun Jian's body. She looked extremely adorable. The next day. Since Yun Jian had returned home early, Ce had made an appointment to take a family photo the day before. This morning, the family of 4 went to the photography studio where the photo was taken. When the photographer saw Yunjian and Ce's family of 4, he couldn't help but praise, "What a handsome family. I've never photographed such a handsome family of 4 in my life. The whole family looks like celebrities in the movies." Yunjian only pursed her red lips slightly. In this era, family photos were usually taken indoors, and the background was even photoshopped later on. Come, come, come. Stand there, the photographer instructed. As he spoke, the photographer held up a huge camera and personally demonstrated how it worked. He then asked Ce and Yunjian to do the same. "Young man, sit on the bench and hug your son. Let your wife sit on your lap and hug your daughter. Take a picture." When he said this, the photographer even wiped his nose, causing it to bleed. Oh my God, he really had never taken such a handsome family. What kind of extreme photos were these? He had to take a few more. Just looking at this family made him envious. Ce's eyes darkened, but she still did as she was told. Come, come, come. Young man, put your hand under your wife's chest and hug her. Move your eyes and look at her like this. Yes, yes, yes. Let your wife sit on your lap and don't raise her butt. You've been married for so long and even have a child. There's nothing to be shy about. Hurry up. Chapter 2472. Page 1/1, Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. The photographer turned around and secretly wiped the blood from his nose. He raised his camera and pointed it at Yunjian, Ce, the little girl, and the little guy. Yunjian obediently sat on Ce's lap. She hugged the little girl and looked at the camera. Yunjian and Ce didn't know much about photography, so Yunjian and Ce only thought that the photographer would be able to take a good picture of their family. If Yunjian and Ce could see through the photographer's thoughts, the photography shop would probably not be able to continue operating. It would be bombarded by cannons every second. Fortunately, Yunjian and Ce didn't know what the photographer was thinking. Using this opportunity, the photographer pressed the shutter and took a series of photos. Mama. 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 The little girl who was being hugged by Yunjian seemed very excited. She didn't sit obediently on Yunjian's lap at all. Instead, she stood on Yunjian's lap and jumped up and down. Yunjian supported the little girl's waist so that she wouldn't fall down. The little guy at the side was being held by Ce by the corner of his shirt. He stared blankly at Ce. He was only 5.5 months old, but his handsome face already had an outline. He stared blankly at Yunjian, then at Ce. Finally, his gaze locked onto the little girl who was being doted on by Yunjian. In the end, the little guy treated himself like a swallow and was being held in the air. He swung his arms and legs up and down excitedly. Of the two little guys, one was jumping up and down on Yunjian's lap and calling out, "Mama," loudly. The other was being held in Ce's hand and was flying up like a swallow flapping its wings. Yunjian was amused by the two restless little guys. She didn't know that Ce's face had already darkened to the extreme at this moment. The two restless fellows kept moving around, especially the little girl who was jumping up and down on Yunjian's lap. Yunjian was still sitting on Ce's lap. Yunjian was fine, but Ce was the one who suffered. That rubbing and scrubbing was really torturous. Good, good, good. Don't move, that's it. What a great photo. Oh my God, I've never taken such a great photo in all my years of photography. The photographer exclaimed as he pressed the shutter. Inside the camera, the 4 of them acted very naturally when the photographer pressed the shutter. Ce's face was a little gloomy, but in the photo, with her back view, there was a sense of warmth mixed in. After taking a full set of family photos, Yunjian and Ce brought the children to the entrance of Longmen City's police station. Before they left, Yunjian had already picked out names for the little girl and the child. "See you on C.E. The former was the little girl's name while the latter was the child's name. There was no special meaning to it. It was just that these were the words that caught Yunjian's attention at first glance among the pile of names. After registering the two children, Yunjian carried the little girl while Ce carried the child to the nearby food street. The food street was very lively at night, with many people coming and going. Just as they arrived, the little girl stretched her neck and body forward desperately. Mama! Yeah yeah yeah! Yeah yeah! The little girl pointed at a person who was selling cotton candy not far away. He was even holding a bunch of cotton candy in his hand. She squeaked and squeaked. When Yunjian saw that the little girl and the child were drooling, she bought cotton candy made from granulated sugar for each of them. Despite her young age, the little girl passed the cotton candy to Yunjian after taking a bite out of it. Yunjian's heart warmed as she took a bite. The little girl giggled and passed the cotton candy that Yunjian had bitten to Ce's mouth. Papa, 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 Yaya. Yaya. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2473. Page 1/1. Children who were close to 6 months old were completely different from newborns. Most 6-month-old children could eat soft things that didn't need to be chewed on. Naturally, the little girl and the little guy couldn't eat too much cotton candy. After all, children were not fully developed yet. However, Yunjian didn't have much experience. As long as it wasn't hard stuff, Yunjian would feed the little girl and the little guy whatever they wanted. Although the little girl was still young, she already understood the principle of sharing food with her parents. As a matter of fact, the little girl couldn't bear to lick the cotton candy that Yunjian had eaten before, so she fed it to Ce. She even made babbling noises. It was obvious that she wanted Ce to eat the cotton candy that Yunjian had eaten before. The little girl and the little guy were smarter than expected. They already knew how to say Papa, even though they didn't pronounce it properly. They were much smarter than the average baby. However, just as the little girl placed the cotton candy in front of Ce's mouth, she wanted Ce to take a bite. The little guy also placed his own cotton candy in front of Ce's mouth expressionlessly and said softly, "Yeah." He was probably telling Ce to eat his cotton candy. However, the little guy's expectations were completely dashed when Ce took a bite of the cotton candy that the little girl had passed to him. Ce didn't even take a bite of the cotton candy that the little guy had passed to him. Ce didn't like sweets. Humph, the little guy seemed to be angered by Ce. He snorted twice, but it didn't sound like he was angry. He retracted his short hands and hugged the cotton candy in his arms. He looked like he was saying, "Bad daddy won't let daddy eat my cotton candy." Unfortunately, the little guy didn't know that cotton candy was soft. When he hugged it, the originally bulging cotton candy deflated like a balloon and stuck to the little guy's body. Ha 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 ha, seeing the cotton candy instantly deflate and stick to the little girl's body, the little girl giggled. Yunjian, on the other hand, was sweating profusely. It was time to wash the little fellow's clothes again. But for Yunjian, it wasn't a headache, but a sense of warmth. The engagement party was set to be held after the New Year, and there were still 5 or 6 days left before New Year's Eve. Before New Year's Eve, most of the people who worked outside the province to earn money had already returned to the countryside. During the Lunar New Year, the villages in Longmen City were usually livelier than the cities as everyone had returned to their villages to celebrate the New Year. Before preparing for the New Year, Yunjian once again set off for Wei Province. Chen Sini had just called her and told her that she could be discharged today. Yunjian took an hour-and-a-half flight to Wei Province's Pan City. After another half an hour of driving, she arrived at Pan City People's Hospital. Today was the day she and Chen Sini had agreed to pick up Chen Sini from the hospital and return to Longmen City. Chen Sini had injured her head a long time ago. Although Yunjian had cured her back then, it was still very inconvenient for her to do many things due to the severity of the injury. Like this time when she drank until her stomach bled, Chen Sini's headache was acting up again. In spite of it, she could be discharged now. When Yun Jian passed by the hospital's entrance, she suddenly heard a commotion not far away. She walked into the hospital without paying much attention to it. In a place like the hospital, it was not uncommon for the patient's family to come to the doctor's door to protest if something happened. When she arrived at Chen Sini's ward, there was no one in sight. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. A nurse came in, and when she saw Yun Jian, she spoke to Yun Jian as if she had seen her savior. "You're the family of the patient who used to stay here, aren't you? Go outside and take a look. There's a woman leading a group of people to drag the patient outside. The scene is crowded with people. Go and persuade them quickly. The patient can't be tortured like this." Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2474. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Sigh, I really don't know what kind of deep hatred there is. She actually grabbed the patient's head and dragged her out. Nurses like us tried to stop her, but were slapped. I heard that the person has some background. No one dares to call the police. Let's go and take a look. This female patient's head has been severely injured before. If it is stimulated again, I'm afraid her life will be in danger. The female nurse said to Yun Jian very kindly. The female nurse was originally in charge of taking care of Chen Sini. She told Chen Sini that she could leave the hospital immediately. The female nurse remembered that there was a man by Chen Sini's side. He had been by her side for a few days. He didn't even sleep at night, afraid that something would happen to Chen Sini. In the end, the man was called out by Chen Sini. The female nurse didn't know what to do either. In the end, when she could leave the hospital, Chen Sini told her that she was waiting for a friend. When this friend arrived, she could leave the hospital. The female nurse nodded. Later on, a beautiful woman in luxurious clothes suddenly rushed into the hospital. This beautiful woman had a large group of bodyguards by her side. Without any explanation, they dragged Chen Sini out. Even the people who went to dissuade him later suffered a calamity and were slapped. Someone wanted to call the police, but was stopped. They said that this beautiful woman was the wife of the richest man in Wei province. They couldn't afford to offend her. The people around naturally didn't want to get involved in this matter, so they all retreated. After all, this matter had nothing to do with them. Who would be so free to poke their noses into other people's business? They might even get into trouble. This female nurse also didn't want to be nosy. However, when she saw Yun Jian, she remembered that Chen Sini said that she was waiting for a friend. Thus, she hurried over to tell Yun Jian about this matter. Don't blame this female nurse for not helping Chen Sini. This was human nature. If you were in trouble, who would be willing to do something that didn't benefit you? This female nurse was already very kind to tell Yun Jian about this matter when she saw her. After hearing this female nurse's words, Yun Jian's face instantly turned cold. In the next second, she disappeared from the female nurse's sight. Within a minute, Yun Jian arrived at the scene of the commotion from the hospital ward. When she arrived at the scene, Yun Jian saw that the surrounding people who were watching the show had formed a circle. She pushed the crowd and arrived at the center of the crowd. She saw Lu Fenfen's face. Chen Sini. Chen Sini. Chen Sini translation. Was Lu Fenfen. Was. Chen Sini who had her head was Chen Sini. Zhang Xiaofeng must have gone out. That was why Lu Fenfen took advantage of this. You didn't seduce my son. Then why didn't my son agree to be engaged to Su Yaya? He even ran away from the engagement banquet today. Give me back my son. Again. Lu Fenfen was like a shrew. She pulled Chen Sini's hair and scolded her crazily. To Lu Fenfen, her son was her everything. But today, her son ran away from the wedding banquet with Suya. This made Lu Fenfen think that Chen Sini was the one who instigated this. Thus, she brought people to catch Chen Sini. Suya was standing at the side. She was wearing the gown from the engagement banquet. She crossed her arms and glared at Chen Sini. When Yun Jian arrived, Su Yu, Ling, and a few others whom Yun Jian met in the Purple Cherry Garden also arrived. "Auntie, don't you think you've gone overboard?" Su Yu and the others had just arrived and were about to say something. Su Yu and the others, including the people who had formed a circle to watch the show, suddenly saw a small figure flash in front of them. The figure was like a flash of lightning. In 3 seconds, she appeared in front of Lu Fenfen from 40 meters away. She lifted her leg high and slashed horizontally. The owner of the small figure grabbed Lu Fenfen's head and kicked Lu Fenfen's neck in front of everyone. When everyone saw who the person was, they only heard a cold voice that resounded in all directions. "How dare you move under my nose? Go to hell." Top reading site, M. Chapter 2475. Yun Jian's kick had directly shattered Lu Fenfen's neck bone. That kick had caused Lu Fenfen's head to tilt. Lu Fenfen could no longer feel the sharp pain that came out of nowhere. At this moment, Lu Fenfen had been kicked to the ground by Yun Jian's high kick, and the bones in her neck had also cracked. When they saw the person standing in front of them, they were stunned. It was Yun Jian, who had fluently translated the words on the rocks like an expert in the Purple Cherry Garden. Especially Su'er, Suya, and Ling. To Su'er, Suya, and Ling, Yun Jian's actions that day seemed like she was deliberately showing off, but in fact, she didn't know anything at all. Especially in the eyes of Su'er, Suya, and Ling, Yun Jian was no different from a young girl. But Yun Jian's kick had completely distorted everyone's view of Yun Jian. That kick, which was full of strength, had directly caused Lu Fenfen's head to tilt. This scene caused everyone's breathing to quicken. "Oh my God! She's going to kill someone!" Someone exclaimed in shock. At this moment, Yun Jian had already kicked all the bodyguards who had attacked Chen Sini to the ground. Chen Sini's head was already in a state where it couldn't take any more damage, and now she was dizzy. Yun Jian helped her to the side. At this moment, someone immediately carried a stretcher to save Lu Fenfen. After all, Lu Fenfen was the wife of the richest man in Wei province. Nothing must happen to her. Whoever dares to save her, I'll kill them today. After helping Chen Sini to the side, Yun Jian slowly stood up. Under the black bangs, a pair of sharp eyes reflected a frightening murderous intent. Everyone present was shocked by Yun Jian's gaze. And what made everyone flinch was the butterfly knife that suddenly appeared in Yun Jian's hand. Killing people is illegal. You're a young girl, you probably couldn't even bear to step on an ant. Quickly put down the knife and don't get agitated. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Su-er furrowed her brows and walked up to Yun Jian, speaking to Yun Jian in a manly tone. "That's right. A little girl like you should be the kind of girl who would feel sorry for killing a chicken. Isn't your friend all right? Hurry up and put down the knife." Ling also spoke. Suya, on the other hand, looked at Yun Jian with an indifferent expression. Her eyes seemed to be saying that even if Yun Jian did not dare to make a move, she would not dare to. However, just as everyone was thinking this, Yun Jian's figure had already arrived in front of Lu Fenfen. Lu Fenfen couldn't move her head, but she could only watch as Yun Jian walked towards her. Just as Yun Jian was about to make a move, suddenly, a figure jumped down from the 3rd floor of the hospital. By the time everyone reacted, an enchanting woman had appeared in front of everyone. Who was this person? Everyone was shocked when they saw this. Just as everyone was puzzled, this enchanting woman walked up to Yun Jian. She walked up to Yun Jian in front of everyone present. The person who came was Snake. Lizard. After Snake. Lizard arrived, a group of people with weapons suddenly rushed in from the periphery. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She was the one who called Snake. Lizard here. Seeing this, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. However, she did not expect Snake. Lizard to arrive at this time. Su-er and the others were all stunned when they saw this scene. These people with weapons were not at the same level as Lu Fenfen's bodyguards. Who are these people? Someone in the crowd said in fear. Su Er, Suya, Ling, and Lu Fenfen, who was lying on the ground and still conscious, all heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they looked at Yun Jian. Could it be that this group of people with weapons were here for Yun Jian? This was impossible. Could it be that they are all here for you? Su Er looked at Yun Jian in shock and said. However, just after Su Er said this, under everyone's incredulous eyes, Yun Jian took the latest pistol from Snake Lizard and pointed it at Lu Fenfen and the group of bodyguards on the ground. She said to Snake Lizard in public, kill them all. Chapter 2476. Page 1/1. The 4 words of command suddenly rang out. The words were so cold that it caused everyone present to suddenly tremble, and a wave of shock flashed through the hearts of everyone present. Kill them all? Who did she want to kill? Everyone's eyes widened, and their faces turned green and purple. What are you trying to do? Are you really going to order people to kill them? Su Er saw that the group of armed men had hidden their weapons after hearing Yun Jian's words. She immediately took out a dagger and walked towards Lu Fenfen and her bodyguard. He was so scared that his face trembled, but due to his manly spirit, he still rushed forward and blocked the group of armed men as he spoke to Yun Jian. You guys, have you been brainwashed by her? You actually dare to bring guns with you? That's illegal. Suya saw that Lu Fenfen was in danger, and she was so scared that her feet seemed to be glued to them. She couldn't take a step forward, but she still exclaimed to Yun Jian. I've changed so many girlfriends, but I've never seen such an interesting woman. This woman, she's hot and spicy. In contrast to Su Er and Suya's shock, the man who had been called Ling from the start rubbed his chin. He lowered his eyes and continued speaking. The man who was called Ling was Han Jin Ling. Han Jin Ling was of mixed Mongolian and Mongolian descent, and there was no difference in appearance between Mongolian and Mongolian. Hence, from Han Jin Ling's appearance, one couldn't tell that he was of mixed Mongolian descent. Han Jin Ling had just returned from overseas. Before he went to university, he had been studying in Mongolian. He was the son of a well-known tycoon in Mongolian, and was also the heir to a billion-dollar fortune. It was because of this that one could tell from Han Jin Ling's words and actions that he was high and mighty. To Han Jin Ling, Lu Fenfen's life was not important. But to Suya and Su Er, it was important. You dare. You dare. You dare to kill me. I'm the wife of the richest man in Wei province. If you dare to attack me, you will also die. Not only will you die, even your family and friends will be finished. If you apologize to me right now, kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times in public, I can reduce your prison sentence by a few years. Otherwise, you can wait for my lawyer's letter and spend the rest of your life in prison. Lu Fenfen's neck had been bent by Yun Jian's kick. She was paralyzed on the ground and could not move because the pain was unbearable. However, Lu Fenfen did not faint. At this moment, Lu Fenfen even had the intention to kill Yun Jian, but she still did not have the self-awareness that she was in danger. Instead, she used her high status to continue to be arrogant in front of Yun Jian. Rich people all had their own private lawyers. Once they felt wronged, they would use the loopholes in the law to protect their rights. In the past, when ordinary people scolded Lu Fenfen would take advantage of the loophole and say that the other party was personally attacking her, forcing the other party to kneel and beg for mercy. Ordinary people could not afford to hire their own lawyers to protect their rights. How could they fight against the rich? If they did not go to Lu Fenfen in private and beg for mercy, it would not be as simple as losing their dignity. This time, Lu Fenfen's neck had been bent by Yun Jian's kick. Naturally, she would not let Yun Jian off so easily. Lu Fenfen had thought that Yun Jian was afraid of going to jail as well, which was why she spoke up aggressively. Su Er, Suya, Han Jinling, and everyone else present heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Lu Fenfen's words. After Lu Fenfen's words, Yun Jian would definitely stop out of fear. However, just as everyone present thought so, Yun Jian suddenly waved her hand. The surrounding subordinates, who were armed with light weapons and daggers, all retreated. Fortunately, Auntie is quick-witted. Otherwise, it would have caused a big problem. Su'er heaved a sigh of relief and said, Yun Jian would definitely not dare to attack again. Just as everyone was thinking this, they saw that Yun Jian had already walked toward Lu Fenfen. She walked up to Lu Fenfen and raised her foot to step on Lu Fenfen's back. That foot hurt so much that Lu Fenfen lifted her body. Yun Jian grabbed Lu Fenfen's neatly combed hair and pulled up her scalp. If she used any more force, her scalp would be torn off. Maintaining her merciless action, Yun Jian's chilling voice rang out at the same time. Her words sent chills down the spines of those who thought that Yun Jian was going to stop there. Oh, is that so? Then you probably don't know that I have received more than 10,000 lawyers' letters in my life suing me for murder. And those who sued me are now lying in their coffins. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2477. Page 1/1. Yun Jian's words were like the scene of a ghost in a horror movie. It suddenly resounded, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. It was even more frightening than the words, "Kill them all." This line of words, coming out of Yun Jian's mouth, was more terrifying than any horror movie. Those words were indifferent, but they made people unable to ignore them. It was like a ballet that struck everyone's hearts. Especially Lu Fenfen, who was sure that Yun Jian would be like those people she met before, who were scared to the point of kneeling and begging for mercy when she said she would send her a lawyer's letter, was so scared that they hurriedly apologized to her. At this moment, her eyes widened, and her face was stunned. In Lu Fenfen's subconscious mind, ordinary people would be scared witless when they heard her say she would send a lawyer's letter to sue the other party. Even if the other party was reasonable, the other party did not have money. People who did not have money could not even afford a good lawyer to defend themselves, let alone offend a rich person. But the meaning behind Yun Jian's words was extremely terrifying. That meant, she often kill people. Yun Jian's words directly scared Lu Fenfen to the point that her face turned pale. However, it was not only Lu Fenfen. Su Ya, and Han Jinling, who thought that Lu Fenfen's words had stunned Yun Jian, were so scared that their faces turned green and purple. They could not recover for a long time. Then, according to what you said, you often kill people? After the shock, Han Jinling was the first to react. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Jian with an expression that said he had seen through her very clearly. Han Jinling was also a handsome guy who looked so handsome that girls passing by would stop in their tracks. Han Jinling, who was of mixed Chinese descent, used to stay in Country H, and Han Jinling even participated in Country H's male singing group's training. At that time, he even became a popular male singer in the entertainment industry. But as a rich second-generation heir, Han Jinling had everything he wanted. When he couldn't find any novelty in the entertainment industry, he directly left the industry. Of course, the fact that Han Jinling was able to enter the entertainment industry and become a popular male singer meant that his looks were not bad. Han Jinling originally thought that Yun Jian would respond to him, but to his surprise, Yun Jian let go of Lu Fenfen's hair, stepped on Lu Fenfen's back with one foot, and said coldly, "Last time in the Purple Cherry Garden, I didn't kill you. You should thank your son for giving you a chance. Today, you actually dared to touch my people again. In that case, I'll give you face again and personally send you to your death." What happened in Wei Province's Pan City did not alarm the Pan City police station. Meanwhile, in Longmen City, Yeji was staying at Qin Yu's house. There were many rooms in Qin Yu's house. Yeji also had her own room. Today, Qin Yu, Xiao Yunju, the little fellow, and the girl had all gone out. Ce was not in Longmen City. Yeji was home alone. She was sitting on the bed in her room. She still remembered her time in Xinjiang town when she was still the cowardly Yun Jian. She, her brother, Yun Yi, and her mother, Qin Yu, lived in Xinjiang town. Although they did not lead a good life, it was still a heartwarming one. Now that she could come back, she was no longer a puppet. It was all thanks to Yunjian. Thinking about it, Yeji smiled. Just as she smiled, Yeji saw a figure reflected in the window. The figure was standing behind her. Turning around, Yeji suddenly saw Yuan Xing. Ah! How can you just enter my room like that? Get out! Yeji shouted when she saw Yuan Xing. She was still wearing very thin clothes, and her underwear was faintly discernible. In spite of it, Yuan Xing's gaze was fixed on Yeji. Without saying a word, he walked over and grabbed Yeji's hand, pulling her out. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2478. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. It was a fact that Yi was timid and weak. This had never changed before and after her rebirth. However, this was also applied to people. In front of Yuan Xing, Yi was not afraid of him at all. But in front of other people, she probably wouldn't even dare to speak loudly. This might be because Yuan Xing had been by her side since her rebirth and they had known each other for 4 years. Of course, before that, Yuan Xing had never helped her. Even if she was beaten up, he would not help her. There was no sense of closeness between them. Come with me. Yuan Lin did not say anything else. That was all he said. Where are we going? Let go. Let go. I'm not dressed yet. Yi wanted to pull her hand back from Yuan Xing's grasp. Yi was sitting on the bed to change her clothes because she had to go to Qingyu's house at night, but her mind wandered when she was changing as she thought about her past. Who would have thought that Yuan Xing would suddenly appear? Did he not say that he would not look for her in the future because he could not see Yunjian and Ce? Yi's eyes teared up when she saw Yuan Jin's death grip on her hand. Just as she was about to be dragged out of the room by Yuan Jin, she mustered up her courage and reached out to grab the door. She half-squatted and refused to go out no matter what. I want to wait for Sis Yunjian to come back. I won't go with you. If you take me away, Sis Yunjian won't let you go. She's the best to me. She's the best to me in the whole world. Yi hugged the door tightly and yelled at Yuan Xing. Hearing Yi say that Yunjian treated her the best in the world, a glint flickered in Yuan Jin's eyes. In that second, he extended his large palm to pry Yi's fingers off the door one by one and spoke expressionlessly. You have to go. There was no room for negotiation. The envelope that Yunjian took from Snake Lizard was actually sent by Yuan Xing to the Kosha mercenaries. The Kosha mercenaries would then pass the envelope to Snake Lizard, who would personally deliver it to Yunjian. There was something written on the envelope that would be very helpful to Yunjian. Of course, there was no such thing as a free lunch. Yuan Xing had told Yunjian such an important thing directly because he had a request. He wanted Yi. As for whether Yunjian and Yi were willing or not, Yuan Xing, he had already delivered the letter. Even if Yunjian was not, he was going to take her away. Wei Province's Pan City. Yunjian was stepping on Lu Fenfen. She's back. Lu's hair. As Yunjian, the butterfly translation, the translation of Lin Yun translation. When they, Lu translation, translation Y. Just as the butterfly knife sank into Lu Fenfen's neck and was about to send Lu Fenfen on her way, Snake Lizard suddenly walked to Yunjian. Snake Lizard, who was dressed in black tights and had an enchanting figure, squatted down and whispered something in Yunjian's ear. Yunjian's eyes narrowed and she stopped in time. I've taken care of it. Turning around, Yunjian told her subordinates who were armed and went to Chinsini. Take her to the ward and come meet me immediately, Yunjian told Snake Lizard. She did not know where Zhang Xiaofeng had been called to buy Chinsini, but he had not returned yet. Jianjian, I'm fine. I can walk back myself. Go quickly if you have something to do. Chen Sini caressed her head and told Yunjian. Be a good girl. Yunjian did not give Chen Sini a chance to retort. By then, Yunjian had torn the letter Yuan Xing gave her to shreds in front of everyone and left with her other subordinates who were armed with light weapons. No one dared to stop them. I'll go take a look. Su'er followed with a frown. I'll go too. Han Jinling followed them when he saw them. When Suya and the others saw this, they followed him curiously. Translator, Tim Editor, Globeglotter. Chapter 2479. The contents of the envelope were indeed very important to Yunjian. Because of this, Yunjian did not even have time to give Lu Fenfen the final blow. She turned and left. Of course, this could be considered as saving Lu Fenfen's life. It was not a coincidence that Snake Lizard and her subordinates with light weapons could come to Wei Province's Pan City. It was Yunjian who ordered them to come over. At that time, Yunjian was walking in front, followed by a few subordinates with light weapons. The group walked forward. After Su'er asked Lu Fenfen's bodyguards to take Lu Fenfen away, she also followed Yunjian's footsteps and chased after them. Suya, Han Jinling, and a few other rich second-generation heirs also followed behind. Su'er followed because he did not want to see Yunjian go astray. He thought that Yunjian had joined some gang, which was why so many people were willing to listen to her. This group of people even had guns in their hands. Of course, other than guns, Su'er also knew that Yunjian and this group of people who had joined a gang would not be able to take out anything else. They chased all the way to the entrance of the Purple Cherry Garden. Wait! Wait! Su'er was the first to run up. He blocked in front of Yunjian and said to Yunjian, I think you should leave the gang as soon as possible. It's not a place for a girl like you to stay. Yunjian glanced at Su'er and walked around Su'er to enter the Purple Cherry Garden. My brother is talking to you. You should at least listen to him. What you're doing is wrong. You're a good girl. Why are you learning to be the boss of a gang? I know that ordinary people like you all want to become rich second-generation heirs like us. But this is your life. You can't change it, so you join some gang? I am doing this for your own good. Suya saw that her brother's words were ignored by Yunjian, so she quickly helped to speak up. However, before Suya could finish her sentence, Yunjian suddenly glanced at her from the corner of her eyes. That cold, murderous gaze made Suya shiver and quickly change her words. Little girl, they're right. I'm a very reasonable person. Tell me, did you join the gang because you had some difficulties? Don't look at me like this. I've been in a gang before, so I know what you guys do. If you're willing, follow me. Although I can't marry you, I can take care of you for the rest of your life. A man in his 20s, who was so fat that his clothes were about to burst, touched his stomach and said to Yunjian. After saying this, the fat man, who was obviously a rich second-generation heir, looked at Yunjian and asked, Little girl, I think you're still a virgin, right? Even if you're not a virgin, I don't mind. Anyway, I'm not going to take you as my wife. Everyone thought that Yunjian was forced to join a gang and work in the black market. She was actually not that capable. Just as everyone thought so, Snake. Chapter 2480. Yunjian had come to Purple Cherry Garden because the letter Yuan Xian gave her mentioned that the mysterious man would send his men to steal the rocks left behind by Deity Continent's creator, Xing Feng. The mysterious man had forcefully separated his body from his soul back then, and his soul had successfully escaped. He did not have the ability to come here again for the time being. In spite of it, the mysterious man had lived for so long and had been planning for so many years. Naturally, he had many capable subordinates like Yunjian. The men who were sent to Purple Cherry Garden to steal the rocks today were personally dispatched by the mysterious man's capable subordinates. As soon as Yunjian and the others entered Purple Cherry Garden's entrance, they would be ambushed by the mysterious man's men who had been lying in ambush all around. According to Yuan Xian's letter, the mysterious man's men were equipped with the latest and most powerful weapons. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to break through. Sister Jian, your shoulder-mounted rocket launcher needs another 10 minutes to arrive, Snake. Lizard informed Yun Jian after contacting the person in charge of the weapons transfer after hearing what Yun Jian said. Yun Jian nodded. Suyu, Suya, Han Jinling, and the other rich second-generation heirs were still in a daze after Snake. Lizard said that. What? You know how to use a rocket launcher? No, how did you? Why you? The man who was so fat that his clothes were about to burst and who had claimed to be Yun Jian's sugar baby was stunned when he heard Yun Jian and Snake. Lizard's conversation. Not only was the plump rich second-generation heirloom flabbergasted, even Suyu, Suya, Han Jinling, and the others were stunned. When they recovered, Suyu was the first to speak to Yun Jian in a trembling voice. It's illegal for someone to steal an antique passed down from generations in Purple Cherry Garden, but the higher-ups will send someone to deal with it. You're neither from the police nor from the special forces. If I'm not wrong, the people you're talking about who came to steal the rock should all be criminals. They have guns and ammunition in their hands. Even if you have guns in your hands, how are you going to compete with those who have been doing this for years? It's better not to get involved in this matter. Su-er spoke to Yun Jian in the best tone she could think of. Su-er didn't know what was wrong with her. As long as he thought about how an extraordinary girl like Yun Jian would die in the Purple Cherry Garden, he felt that he had to stop her. Brother, why do you care about her? Since she thinks she's so powerful, then let her die here. Before Suya could finish her sentence, the sound of a police siren suddenly rang out. Not long after, 3 police cars stopped not far away. A middle-aged man got out of one of the police cars. After the middle-aged man got out of the car, he saw that Yun Jian and the others were still standing in such a dangerous area. He quickly rushed forward and shouted to Yun Jian and the others as he walked. Little girl, leave quickly. We've received reports from nearby residents that a group of criminals with guns has appeared in the Purple Cherry Garden. If you continue to stay here, you'll be in danger. Please leave quickly. The middle-aged man had also risked his life to come and tell Yun Jian and the others to leave. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Su-er, Suya and the others once again realized the danger they were in. Their hearts trembled again. Even the police were here. Yun Jian would definitely listen and leave obediently. The farce was over. That was what everyone present thought. Su-er, Suya, Han Jinling and the others had already turned and walked away from the Purple Cherry Garden's entrance. It was too dangerous here. They thought that Yun Jian would also turn and leave after hearing the middle-aged man's words. However, just as everyone thought so, Yun Jian suddenly took out a large stack of documents from her pocket the moment Su-er and the others turned around. Then, she picked out one document from the stack and showed it to the middle-aged man and the other police officers. In the next second, just as everyone was shocked that Yun Jian could take out so many documents at such a young age, the words that made everyone's jaws drop suddenly rang out and entered everyone's ears. Zhe Province's 3rd Military Region Special Forces member, serial number 006 God of Killing. Leave this group of criminals to me alone. I'm enough to eliminate them. M. Chapter 2481. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Yun Jian's Identity, page 1/1, leave this group of criminals to me alone. I'm more than enough to wipe them out. Yun Jian's flat voice resounded throughout the entire venue. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked into a daze. Everyone was shocked by Yun Jian's simple words. This young girl, who didn't even look like she was 20 years old, actually, a member of the Special Forces. Special Forces. That wasn't a place that any ordinary person could enter. Whether it was physical fitness or personal strength, they had to reach the standard to be able to reach the threshold of the Special Forces. And Yun Jian, Su-er, Suya, Han Jinling, and the others originally thought that Yun Jian was just an ordinary female university student. After all, Yun Jian gave everyone the impression that she was a friend of a mistress who wanted to steal Suya's fiancé. But what they never expected was that the thick-skinned mistress who wanted to steal Suya's fiancé's friend, Yun Jian, actually had such a background. Killing God? Why does this name sound so familiar? Just as Suya, and the others were shocked by Yun Jian's identity as a Special Forces member, the middle-aged man had already touched his chin and was deep in thought. Familiar? Uncle Policeman, even if she's a Special Forces member, it's just a nameless one. She probably clashed with the name of a big shot. Suya was not stupid. Just by the fact that Yun Jian wanted to steal her fiancé's friend, she already hated Yun Jian. Suya's words were full of hostility. Hearing Suya's words, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She quietly hid all her documents back into her pocket and did not say a word. Snake. Lizard and Yun Jian's other subordinates stood at the side. The weapon that Yun Jian wanted would still take 10 minutes to arrive at the scene. So Yun Jian stood there and did not move. After the middle-aged man got out of the police car, his subordinates immediately followed behind him. After thinking for a long time, the middle-aged man touched his head and reached out to Yun Jian. "Hello, little girl, I'm from the nearby police station. I'm the leader of the team after receiving the news. Everyone calls me Old Zhang, you can call me that too." Old Zhang reached out to Yun Jian but did not get a handshake. Yun Jian. She did not reach out her hand but introduced herself to Old Zhang. "Sorry, I'm not used to shaking hands." Yun Jian, after she finished her introduction, she added another sentence. "Huh, it's fine. It's young girl. I understand." Old Zhang was a straightforward person. "That's right, it's dangerous to stand here. Let's move further away," Old Zhang said. Not a few military jeeps from Aza's words. After the vehicles, the translation is. The Yunza's translation Suya, Han Jinling, and the others' eyes lit up. Even if Yun Jian took out the document that could prove her identity, Suer and the others did not believe that Yun Jian had the ability to take care of the criminals in the Purple Cherry Garden alone. After the group of fully armed Special Forces soldiers came over, the leader, who was about the same age as Old Zhang, stood in front of everyone. He had the handsome and heroic bearing of a soldier. "Old Zhang, what are you waiting for? Take these young people and leave." Obviously, the leader of the Special Forces soldiers knew Old Zhang. Don't panic. This little girl is a member of Zhe Province's 3rd Military Region Special Forces Team. Number 006, codename Killing God. Old Zhang said to the leader of the Special Forces soldiers. The leader of the Special Forces soldiers was called Wen Zhengyu. He was a veteran and knew Old Zhang. When Wen Zhengyu heard Old Zhang's words, Suer and the others thought that Wen Zhengyu would be shocked that Yun Jian was a Special Forces soldier at such a young age. However, Wen Zhengyu's expression changed. His usually expressionless face revealed a hint of surprise. "Team Monarch's Killing God? If I remember correctly, you're the daughter of the former 3rd Military Region Special Forces team leader, Gu Junjian?" Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2482. Gu Yunjian's status was not low. Before his retirement, Gu Yunjian's battle record was also an object of admiration for many. He was a hero. Wen Zhengyu had heard of Yun Jian long ago, but he did not expect to meet her here. Of course, Wen Zhengyu's face did not show much surprise or astonishment. When he heard about Yun Jian's identity, he was only stunned for a moment before laughing out loud. He looked at Yun Jian as if she was an old acquaintance and said, "I've met Gu Junjian once before. He's a soldier full of righteousness. I admire him a lot. I didn't expect to meet his daughter here, and his daughter is the equally revered Team Monarch slashing god. It's a pleasure to meet you." Wen Zhengyu looked excited. When Zhengyu's words were heard by Suya, Han Jinling, and the others. The sudden surge of emotions caused Su'er, Han Jinling, and the others to tremble. Yun Jian had such a background. Moreover, from Wen Zhengyu's tone, Yun Jian was also a very important person in the Special Forces team. Su'er and the others were shocked by his words. They widened their eyes and stared at Yun Jian. Especially the fat man who said he wanted to keep Yun Jian as his sugar baby. He was so shocked that his face turned green and purple. You guys go investigate the area first. When the time is right, we'll attack. Of course, Wen Zhengyu was not there to reminisce. After he said that to Yun Jian, he smiled at Yun Jian before turning to speak to his team members. Wen Zhengyu was the captain, so his team members were about to disperse and investigate the area before making plans to infiltrate the Purple Cherry Garden. There's no need to investigate. My men have already investigated all the hiding spots and their plans in the Purple Cherry Garden. They won't be able to move those huge rocks in an hour. Right after Wen Zhengyu said that, Yun Jian spoke before Wen Zhengyu's team members were about to disperse. Before the special forces infiltrated a place, it was necessary for them to investigate the scene. And investigating the crime scene was also very likely to cost one's life. After Yun Jian finished speaking, Wen Zhengyu immediately reacted. There's no need to check. Wen Zhengyu chose to believe in Yun Jian. I'm enough here. However, since you're here, I'll deal with the aftermath after I enter the Purple Cherry Garden, Yun Jian said. Since Wen Zhengyu and the others were here, they must have been deployed by the higher-ups to carry out a mission. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Wen Zhengyu was stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he said, Can you do it alone? It's too dangerous. Let's work together. I alone am enough. Working together will only drag me down. Although Yun Jian had a good impression of Wen Zhengyu, she was still merciless when it came to such matters. Originally, they thought that the way Wen Zhengyu and Yun Jian spoke was very friendly. However, after hearing Yun Jian's words, Su'er, Suya, and Han Jinling instantly felt that Yun Jian was deliberately destroying her relationship with Wen Zhengyu. Is she stupid? A normal person would at least say something polite, right? Isn't Yun Jian afraid of offending people by speaking so bluntly? Just when Su'er, Suya, and the others thought that Wen Zhengyu would frown unhappily because of Yun Jian's words, Wen Zhengyu suddenly broke into a smile and said to Yun Jian in front of everyone, Okay. We'll do as you say. I've never doubted the strength of the god of slaughter who can single-handedly capture countless spies in just a few days and still not subdue an international drug trafficker. Chapter 2483. When Zhengyu had naturally heard about the news of Yun Jian arresting Miland, an international drug trafficker, in just a few days. Once the news broke out, it shocked the entire international community. What? You're saying that she single-handedly took down an international drug trafficker that countless spies could not? When Wen Zhengyu's words fell, even Han Jinling, who had been calm all this time, revealed a shocked expression. Wen Zhengyu was taken aback when he heard that. You guys aren't members of Team Monarch? Wen Zhengyu glanced at Suya and the rest. They're not, Yun Jian replied. Clearly, Wen Zhengyu thought that Suya and the rest were members of Team Monarch. Then leave the scene quickly. It's very dangerous here, Wen Zhengyu said. If they were members of Team Monarch, they would be special forces and would have the ability to protect themselves. However, Suya and the rest were just ordinary people. It's too late. Just after Wen Zhengyu said that, Yun Jian spoke again. What do you mean by that? Yun Jian's words sounded horrifying. Just as Yun Jian finished speaking, Suya lifted her head and looked at her with trembling eyes. Are you cursing us? Don't think that you're so great just because you're a special forces soldier. Didn't you say that your dad was some special forces captain? What kind of honor is this? Don't tell me that your dad used his connections to get you this. When Suya heard that Wen Zhengyu was going to send them away, but Yun Jian suddenly said that it was too late. She panicked and thought that Yun Jian was cursing them, so she questioned Yun Jian in a very nasty tone. After all, Yun Jian was so young. It was impossible for her to have such a battle record. When Su'er, Han Jinling, and the rest heard Suya's words, they instantly turned to her side. Yun Jian's age did not match her battle record. Was she really that good? After all, she was just a friend of the mistress who wanted to steal Suya's fiancé. But just as Suya and Su'er thought so, Yun Jian took out a pair of white transparent gloves from somewhere. She skillfully put on the gloves and said to the snake. Lizard behind her, have my things arrived? Sister Jian, we're here. Snake. Lizard nodded. Everyone was bewildered. At the same time, Yun Jian stretched out her hand behind her. Yun Jian inserted the two pistols on both sides of her waist and took out the latest shoulder-mounted rocket launcher handed over by Snake. Lizard. When Zheng Yu's face froze when he saw the latest shoulder-mounted rocket launcher. He seemed to have realized what Yun Jian was going to do. After a moment of shock, he said, You're going to, however, before Wen Zhengyu could say anything, under the gazes of Su'er, Suya, Wen Zhengyu, Old Zhang, and the others, Yun Jian grabbed the heavy rocket launcher with one hand and rushed into the purple cherry garden. Bang, 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 bang. Just as Yun Jian dashed into Purple Cherry Garden, the sniper who stood at a high vantage point aimed at the garden's entrance fired a barrage of bullets at her. Just as all of this was happening, something that everyone present was horrified to the point that they would never be able to forget happened. Yun Jian dodged the barrage of bullets almost at the same time. In the next second, before anyone could react to it, she hoisted the shoulder-mounted rocket launcher on her shoulder and fired at her without even looking. The snipers who were 1,000 meters away fired a shot. The rocket launcher was like an automatic cannonball, blasting the group of snipers who were shooting at her. Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 2484. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. In just a few short seconds, shock and fear flashed through the hearts of everyone present. That perfect shot, it was as if she was a king walking on top of the world. She did not need anyone to guide her, nor did she need anyone to help her charge forward. Facing the group of snipers who were hiding at a sniping point a kilometer away, she was not afraid at all. She was like an emperor who ruled the world. She picked up her weapon and blasted the group of snipers accurately without even needing a commander to direct the firing angle. In order to carry out a high-altitude bombing, the commander would need to stand at the side to check the wind speed, humidity, as well as the focus distance and the accurate direction. Only then would the shot be able to hit the target. What about Yun Jian? She actually used her own strength and did not even need the commander to help her check all the factors that would cause the shot to deviate from the hit point. She directly took the shot and charged forward. This was not the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing was that Yun Jian's shot had hit the snipers who were 1,000 meters away in the air with a precise distance without a millimeter deviation. The power of the shoulder-mounted rocket launcher was quite strong. That shot could directly fly 1,000 meters away in a second. Yun Jian's series of actions were completed in 3 seconds. 3 seconds later. When Zhengyu, Old Zhang, Suyu, Suya, Han Jinling and the others who were standing at the same spot all stared with their eyes wide open. They were so scared that they almost lost their minds. That group of snipers in the distance were all blown away by that shot of hers. Just how strong was she? And she is only a member of the Special Forces, how can she use such a high-tech weapon? While everyone was still in a daze, when Zhengyu's voice rang out once again without warning. These words caused the surrounding people to be even more astonished and stunned. When Zhengyu was the leader of this group of special forces who came to help. If even he said such words, then it meant that as a special forces member, he was not qualified to learn such high-tech things. Then where did Yun Jian learn to use this shoulder-mounted rocket launcher? And to be able to use every weapon with such dexterity and ease, playing with them with such ease. In this world, there was only one kind of person who was forced to learn all the weapons to the fullest. If not, then facing her would be death. And that kind of person's identity was Bang. While Suya's makeup was smudged from fright, Suyu, Han Jinling, and the plump man who claimed to be Yun Jian's sugar baby just now paled in fright. Yun Jian, who was standing not far away from them, suddenly held the shoulder-mounted rocket launcher in her hand and threw it to the ground. Everyone was shocked. Just when everyone did not know what Yun Jian's actions, they did not understand why she would throw such a valuable and powerful weapon to the ground. Yun suddenly in front of everyone's eyes, in front of the crowd. Inside the coat, there was a black skin-tight black bodysuit and with it, beside her waist, there were 2 shiny silver pistols. There was also a bag of bullets tightly wrapped around the bandage in front of her abdomen. The outfit that perfectly complemented her figure had a visual resemblance to the special forces in the movies. This scene that suddenly flashed in front of everyone's eyes made their hearts tremble violently. But before everyone could react, they saw that Yun Jian had already walked forward slowly with her back facing everyone. She did not turn her head, but she left behind a word that made everyone's blood boil. Kill. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2485. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, kill, was a word that could not be any simpler. However, in this blood-boiling scene, it was as if the Grim Reaper was calling out to all living beings, causing the string in everyone's heart to be pulled to the climax. Everyone was affected by this word. It was as if they were in a bloody battle of life and death, and the young girl in front of them, who was not even 20 years old, was the only way for them to survive. Brothers, these criminals dare to come to Z country and show off. Listen to my orders, attack. When Zheng Yu's great spirit as a soldier was completely ignited at this moment. He took the rifle from his back and held it in his hand as he gestured to his brothers. Everyone obeyed and waited for orders. Old Zhang, take these kids and leave this place quickly. Brothers, let's go, we're going to do something big today. When Zheng Yu turned his head and looked at old Zhang, then raised his hand and gestured. Before he finished speaking, when Zheng Yu led his men and followed Yun Jian into the purple cherry garden. At this time, Snake Lizard's men were one step ahead of Wen Zheng Yu and the others, and they were the first to follow Yun Jian's footsteps. Seeing Yun Jian, Wen Zheng Yu and the others leave their field of vision, Su'er, Suya, Han Jinling and the others were stunned for a long time. Brother, let's go back. Suya said to Su'er with a trembling voice. If you're scared, then go back yourself. Su'er clenched her fist and rushed into the purple cherry garden without waiting for old Zhang to react. This girl. Seeing Su'er rush into the purple cherry garden, Han Jinling pressed his forehead. Not long after he said that, Han Jinling rushed into the purple cherry garden with Su'er. Come back. Come back. I'll go. Old Zhang could not stop them in time. By the time he reacted, Su'er and Han Jinling had already run far away. I'm telling you guys, you can't follow them anymore. You'll only cause trouble if you follow. You. Just as old Zhang said this, Suya harumphed and chased after Su'er and the others into the purple cherry garden. The fat man, as well as the few young people who had stayed behind with Suya and Su'er, had originally planned to retreat. But just as they were about to agree to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible. My son, my son. An anxious voice sounded. The person who came was none other than Lu Fenfen, whose chin had been kicked crooked by Yun Jian. Lu Fenfen was kicked in the chin by Yun Jian and was lifted up to have her chin straightened. Just now, she had heard that someone had seen her son, Bo Wenxiu, appear in the purple cherry garden, and the purple cherry garden was now being invaded by a group of criminals. So, after putting on the chin that wouldn't shift, Lu Fenfen had her bodyguards escort her over to look for him. No matter how evil Lu Fenfen was, a mother's love was selfless. She didn't even care about her own pain and ran over to find her son. Fatty Zhou De. Quick, quick, bring me to Wenxiu. Lu Fenfen walked over and grabbed the fat man who was about to leave. Fatty Zhou was the name of the fat man who had said that he was keeping Yunjian as his sugar baby. Auntie, I. Fatty Zhou was a little scared and didn't dare follow. Quick! Lu Fenfen grabbed Fatty Zhou's arm and dragged him into the purple cherry garden, not giving him a chance to refute at all. The others who were good friends with Zhou Depang all followed him. In the end, old Zhang's negotiation with Lu Fenfen was fruitless, and he was even slapped by Lu Fenfen. She insisted on bringing people into the purple cherry garden, disregarding the lives of these people, just to find her precious son. Translator, Timothy_editor, Globeglotter. Chapter 2486. Yunjian's kick just now had indeed caused Lu Fenfen to be bedridden for a few months. Of course, that was the case for normal people. Although Lu Fenfen was extremely selfish, all mothers were the same. Lu Fenfen, who loved her son dearly, could endure the excruciating pain. Of course, Lu Fenfen had already gotten someone to fix her crooked chin before she came. Although it was still painful, it was much better than when she had been kicked in the beginning. Yunjian, snake, lizard, and Wen Zhengyu's group had already entered the purple cherry garden first. They were one step ahead of Lu Fenfen and the others. At the same time, Yunjian and the others had just arrived at the purple cherry garden. They were approaching the pile of rocks left behind by the creator of the deity continent, Xing Feng, that the mysterious man's subordinates wanted to attack. It was quiet all around as if there was no one around. After entering the purple cherry garden, it was as if this place had never been invaded by criminals. Everything was as usual. Except for the fact that this place was extremely quiet and there was not a single person around. Yunjian narrowed her eyes slightly. She reached out to tuck a handful of strands of hair beside her ear and gently licked the dark red arc of her lips. Captain, why is there no one here? How could a place invaded by criminals be so quiet? A special forces soldier following behind Wen Zhengyu suddenly realized that something was amiss. He opened his mouth to break the initial silence and suddenly spoke up. Shoo, stay alert at all times. Don't let your guard down. Wen Zhengyu was indeed a veteran with higher seniority. He stretched his fingers and tightened his grip on the rifle in his hand as he spoke to his subordinate solemnly. Hearing this, the special forces soldier who had spoken up nodded silently and did not speak again. After Wen Zhengyu finished speaking, Yunjian suddenly pointed silently behind a pile of rocks not far away. Hearing this, everyone moved forward. However, just as everyone was about to reach the back of the pile of target rocks, the sound of footsteps came from behind them. Son! My son! Son! This sudden female voice completely exposed Yunjian and the others' whereabouts. The owner of this voice was none other than Lu Fenfen. Oh no! Move! Wen Zhengyu shouted loudly. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly dodged to the side. Su Er, Suya, and Han Jinling, who had followed Yunjian and the others into the purple cherry garden before Lu Fenfen, were quite smart. They silently followed behind Yunjian and the others. Who would have thought that Lu Fenfen's voice would come from behind? Dash! At this moment, a series of machine gun shots rang out. Wen Zhengyu frowned when he saw that Lu Fenfen and the others were exposed to the sniper rifle. His identity as a soldier made him rush forward without hesitation. He grabbed Lu Fenfen and the others and threw them to the side. But the bullet was still faster than him and grazed his arm. Hiss! Wen Zhengyu gasped. At this moment, a group of black-robed people walked out from behind the pile of rocks. The group of people only revealed a pair of pitch-black eyes, which was incomparably strange. These people were also holding a group of hostages. A group of hostages had machine guns pointed at their heads. It was obvious that this group of hostages were the poor and unlucky people who had been caught by the criminals while strolling in the purple cherry garden. Son! My son! My son! When Lu Fenfen saw Bo Wenxiu among the hostages, she screamed and tried to push Wen Zhengyu away. This is your son? One of the black-robed people heard this and asked. Yes. Let him go. As long as you let him go. I can give you money. I'll give you as much as you want. Lu Fenfen nodded frantically. It wasn't that Bo Wenxiu was tied up by the black-robed people and couldn't move. He also covered his mouth. Okay. The black-robed people agreed. Seeing this, Lu Fenfen heaved a sigh of relief. Just when Lu Fenfen thought that the black-robed people would really let him go, the black-robed people suddenly took out a dagger. In front of everyone, he swung the dagger and chopped off Bo Wenxiu's middle and ring fingers in front of everyone. Sorry, I was going to loosen his ropes, but I didn't expect that I would miss. Chapter 2487. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The black-robed man's expression was hidden under the thick black robe. His tone was calm, as if what he had just done was a very simple and normal thing. Woo! Woo! Woo woo woo! Bo Wenxiu, whose mouth was covered by black tape, had 2 of his fingers chopped off. He was in so much pain that the pulse in his head was obvious. The pain of having 2 of his fingers chopped off without any anesthetics made Bowen's face turn green with the black tape covering his mouth. When everyone saw this scene, all of them turned pale with fright. This was especially true for Su Er, Suya, Han Jinling, and the other young people. No. No. Son. My son. My Wenxiu. Lu Fenfen cried out in shock. Her eyes widened, as if she couldn't believe the unreal scene in front of her. She cried out in surprise. No. Why? Impossible. Why was it her son? Why was it her son who had his fingers chopped off? When the other hostages saw this horrifying scene, they were so scared that their faces turned pale and their souls flew out of their bodies. Too cruel. It was simply too cruel. Was this black-robed man really human? How could he do such a thing? Other than Yun Jian, everyone else was shocked by this horrifying scene. If Wen Zhengyu hadn't used his uninjured hand to hold on to Lu Fenfen, she would have already rushed out. It's all your fault. It's all your friend's fault. If it wasn't for your friend, my son wouldn't have escaped from today's engagement banquet, and wouldn't have bet on you. Once we get out of here, I'll definitely kill you. Lu Fenfen's eyes were red and swollen. She suddenly turned her head and shouted at Yun Jian. She looked as if she couldn't wait to kill Yun Jian. At this moment, the black-robed man's attention was on Yun Jian. Hee. In the next second, the black-robed man laughed. You finally appeared. Looking at Yun Jian, the black-robed leader continued. From the beginning, Yun Jian felt that this black-robed man's voice was very familiar. Under everyone's gaze, Yun Jian lowered her eyes. In the next second, she said firmly without any hesitation or doubt. You are Qi Ling, the former number 2 assassin on the assassin ranking. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present suddenly turned to look at the black-robed man. Not only were they terrified of the black-robed man's identity as an assassin. What was even more frightening was, Qi Ling was the former number 2 assassin on the ranking list. In other words, Qi Ling was the assassin who had killed Slaying God, the current number 1 on the international secret agent ranking, a few years ago during the Bloody Night incident. He was already a dead man. How could he still be alive? He. The assassin called Qi Ling suddenly tore off the black cloth covering his face, revealing a ferocious face. That appearance was indeed that of Qi Ling, one of the top 20 international assassins who had died in that Bloody Night incident. Qi Ling was supposed to be a dead man. What? What was going on? At this moment, the 19 black-robed men standing next to Qi Ling tore off the black cloth covering their faces one by one. Familiar faces from the Bloody Night incident were exposed before everyone's eyes. Just as Su Er, Suya, Lu Fenfen, Wen Zhengyu, and everyone else present were stunned by the scene before them. Qi Ling suddenly uttered words that were unforgettable to Yun Jian in front of everyone who was pale with fright. You're right, Yun Jian, you're right. Slaying God, you didn't expect us to come back to life after you killed us, did you? It's been a few years since we last met and you're still as powerful as ever. But we're still not convinced. Here and now, the Bloody Night incident will happen again. Slaying God, take this. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.